A young woman discovers the rental home she booked is already occupied by a stranger. Against her better judgment, she decides to spend the night, but soon discovers there's a lot more to fear than just an unexpected house guest. Come for the night, stay forever. Welcome to another feature presentation of Midnight Double Feature, and on this episode we'll be covering 2022's Barbarian, written and directed by Cregger. What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to Midnight Double Feature. We are here covering Barbarian. Excited to cover this. Excited to have you guys here along with us. If this is your first time listening to the show, we are going to spoil this movie. It's not a newer movie, but, you know, we are going to get into spoilers. I usually don't say that, but it's, a year old maybe. But we are going to spoil it. We're going to go through it basically from tip to tap, from A to Z. We're going to go through it, not every single scene, but talk about it as we do go through it. There's an E on this motherfucker for a reason. This show is rated E for explicit, and you can check out our socials in the show notes. The Trevor Moore to my Cregger. Zohaib Ali. How you doing, buddy?
Hello. How you doing? Is that a Whitest Kids You Know reference? Is that a...
Yeah.
It's, yeah. Look, I'm not white, but I'll take it.
Where's my name, Trevor? No, I'm good. I'm excited to be covering this. This was my pick for the week, and I've heard so much about this movie, and I was like, you know what, it's time to do it. I'd not seen this before. I've never seen this before. So I basically played Russian roulette, and the gun went click, and I was like, yes.
Those are some of the best ones, honestly.
We've
done that a couple times on the pod. Usually you're the one that does it. I'm like, I don't like that uncertainty.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah, I'm playing with fireworks in the driveway. I'm over here lighting stuff and throwing it. But I think in this case, like you said, it was a winner and ended up being a pretty good movie, and we'll definitely get into that. Guys, we also have a Patreon. It's going to be patreon.com/Midnight Double Feature. It's called The Green Room. For $5 a month, you get access to something like 80, 90 episodes now, or something. Like 70, 80 episodes?
Somewhere around 80, I think, when you, yeah.
Yeah. And you're going to get all that for literally $5. We update it twice a month. You get 2 new episodes. Sometimes we let our members pick the episodes. Sometimes, we just go off and get suggestions, or we pick whatever we want. We kind of, some of those are sometimes shorter. Sometimes we go for the full, thing. So there's a lot of different kind of episodes on there. So if you guys want to check it out again, that's patreon.com/Midnight Double Feature. But with all that out of the way, Barbarian, man, the word of mouth around this fucking thing was like, I was hearing it from everybody. And I just now saw it. Literally, I started watching this about 2 hours ago. And I'd never seen it before. I wanted just to go in totally fresh, like I want somebody to record me as I walk out of the theater kind of feeling. And I think that's what I had in mind, and it ended up working out well. But had you seen this before?
Yeah, I saw it. I saw it as it hit theaters last year. Because I was very much like you. It didn't come to Australia at the same time as the US. It released in the US, and a lot of people were talking about it on Twitter. Like, my feed was just like #Barbarian, #Barbarian. But that being said, I didn't know anything about it going in.
Me either.
Intentionally avoided trailers. I intentionally avoided everything that this movie was putting out in terms of like marketing material. And I think that's the best way to see this movie, is if you do not know what's going to happen, if you don't even know the setting. I didn't even know the setting. I didn't even know that it was going to take place in one house. I didn't know who was, the only person I knew that was in it, which kind of like not ruined the movie for me, but like in the back of my mind it was there. I'm like, isn't fucking Justin Long in this movie? Like, yeah. I was like, what the fuck? That's all I knew. So yeah, I've definitely seen this. It was one of my favorite movies last year. I think I did like a top 10 list, and I think it fell somewhere in the middle. I adored this movie when it came out, man. But I am. Before I dive into my thoughts on it, I want to hear you. I want to hear your thoughts on it, because I mean, you've already like tipped your hand a little bit, and you've indicated that this was a winner. This is a But yeah, like, let me hit me. What do you think, man?
I think
what a ride, what a journey this movie is.
Yeah. Well, I think that there's I think there's a lot of really, really good stuff in this movie. I like the casting decisions. I like the way music is used. Like, I like the feeling of dread and just kind of like unspoken tension. That's just kind of like, is this person gonna fucking kill me? Like, there's just this kind of unspoken thing that I love. Like, the front load of this movie is like misery. I'm like, whoa, so there's a man and a woman, and there's this weird kind of situation where you can't really leave. Like, I don't know, the elements have forced you together. And I was like, I really find that to be super interesting. Now, that being said, I could see how.
I don't mean to interrupt here. I just wanted to, while we're here at the beginning, before we do get into our thoughts, I just want to. We're not going to go into it too heavily, and we're probably not going to talk details, but just in case, like a trigger warning, this movie is about sexual assault. So if anyone is listening, it might come up, given that it is such a heavy thing in this movie. If you're triggered, our apologies, and you're more than welcome to give this one a skip. But yeah,
there's very few things I agree with trigger warnings for,
right?
And that's one of them. I'm not one of those like fucking safe space, and not like that. But one of the few times I'd say, yeah, this is pretty warranted. It's a heavily. It's a heavy theme in this movie.
Frank is a fucked up guy. We were just before we hit record, we were like talking about who this might be based on, and I think you kind of nailed it. Like, the toy box killer is probably the best one-to-one.
We were just talking about him off air, David Parker Ray, and Zohab had a great point. It's like, it's always the guys with 3 names, and I was like, great, now it's going to be James Earl Jones. It's going to come out, and I always wondered about his collection of little shoes. That's a Bill Hicks joke. Right. But yeah,
your thoughts. I'm so sorry.
No, you're fine.
I just wanted to get it away, like right at the beginning. That's all. So.
Right. That's 100% what I thought of at first. I was like, man, this is a fucking case file episode, But I really, really did enjoy it. I think that as far as like story goes, at first I feel like you were getting the something like Misery of just a human one-on-one kind of interaction. These two people trapped in this, or not even trapped, but just in this situation of what the hell is going to happen. And the first half is so good with tension. I love it. It's so well done. And it's at parts I was watching and I was like, man, this is really awkward and like clumsy. And I was like, well, that's kind of the situation. Like, Lindsay actually pointed that out to me. My fiance Lindsay goes, well, it is kind of awkward, it is kind of clumsy. She's like, the rest of the movie doesn't feel like that at all. And I was like, yeah, actually, yeah, you're right. The rest of the movie feels very well paced and has good editing, and this beginning part just feels very tense, and for a good reason. But I liked pretty much everything about this movie. I didn't really have any major complaints. I can see why it would be. It's like, it is in terms of story. It is kind of one of those movies like, and then this happens, and then this happens, and then this, and it's like, whoa, how much deeper. The movie is like an analogy for the tunnel under the house. It just kept going, and you're like, what the fuck? Where does this goddamn thing end? And like what's going on? Like, by the end of this movie, I was like, oh, the whole neighborhood is like this. They have a hive system. Like, like there's tunnels under the whole fucking neighborhood. But I liked pretty much everything about it, and I really enjoyed the fact that I don't know what you want to call her, mother.
Yeah, we'll call her the mother or something.
Yeah, mother. That mother basically was not really a bad person, was not
a victim, right?
Yeah, like, and somebody who like a lot of people are, people who are victimized younger in life, and there's a shit ton of people who, when they become adults also, turn to that, and it sucks, but it's this kind of like vicious cycle. And I think that it's one of those villains, air quote, that you kind of go like, well, I don't know about that now. Like, I get it. Yeah, the kidnapping thing, yeah, that's bad. Like, I don't like the kidnapping thing, but it sure is a hell of a lot better than what the other fucking guys doing. Like, the homeless guy, I think his name's Andre. I think I saw that in the subtitles. Yeah. And he was like, there's worse things than her in that house. And I looked over at Lindsay. I was like, the fuck? It's like, what the fuck is in
I had
there?
the same. I had the same reaction. I kind of have an issue with that line, just in terms of like expectations and what it sets up. It's
Yeah,
like,
I thought,
okay, look, I get you're talking about Frank, who's
yeah.
obviously like pretty fucked up, but I thought that there was going to be some kind of other monstrosity in there, like an
I thought it
actual
was going
like
to be like a
physical
shark with machine gun arms, like it's going to be something insane.
sharks with
Uh,
freaking lasers and shit.
yeah. Uh, yeah, I definitely thought there was going to be something insane. I thought this movie, I feel like, is a great. It's almost like the full scale version of the Home episode from X Files about the
Yeah,
incestuous
yeah.
family. That's what I thought of. I immediately thought, oh, there's a baker's dozen of these things down there because of the inbreeding and the sexual assault and stuff. And I was like, there's going to be a shit ton of these things down there. But I was surprised. Yeah, like you, I think that was a little misleading where I was like, yeah, so there's like a Resident Evil Nemesis looking character down here, right? Like there's some kind of crazy
The goddamn
juggernaut.
flood is down there.
Right. Yeah, there's some kind of insane, beast down here. But all in all, I really did. I really enjoyed it. I liked all of the musical choices were really good. Apparently Zach Cregger was like, the top floor of this house is like a David Fincher movie, and the bottom floor is Sam
Yeah.
Raimi. And I was like,
It's perfect.
yeah, that's pretty good.
That's a great analogy for sure.
This movie really made me, and I'm a massive Whitest Kid You Know fan. I love Whitest Kid You Know. I'm signed up for like their Patreon and stuff. They're trying to get an animated movie made, and Zach Cregger is one of the founding members of the comedy troupe Whitest Kid You Know. If you've never seen them, you definitely got to check them out. They're hilarious. But he plays Abe Lincoln in one that's great, and it's probably their most famous sketch, and he's Abe Lincoln. It's great, but he for this to come out of him really fucking surprised me. And what's crazy is I would watch their streams on Twitch, and there was a few weeks where he wasn't there, and people in the chat were going, "Hey, where's Zach?" And he's like, "Oh, he's filming some movie in Bulgaria." And apparently the interior of these shots of this movie were filmed in Bulgaria. Everything else was actually filmed on location, like outside. And I was like, that is fucking crazy. So that's where he was during like the live streams and stuff. So I gained a lot of respect for Zach Cregger from this. Apparently he's got a rule of about like, I didn't want to use anything that John Carpenter didn't have on the set of The Thing. Like I don't want to have anything better
cool.
than. I was like, that's a very fucking cool rule to have, man. So yeah, I I really enjoyed it. I can see how it's not for everybody, but it's a movie that heavily relies on twists, and I don't know how I would feel about it 10 15 viewings down the line, without those twists there. What about you?
Yeah, like I said, man, I didn't know those twists were coming at all. So this absolutely floored me when I watched it at the movies, and I've seen it about 3 times now. I think this was my 4th viewing, and this movie is really interested in the day-to-day interactions of women with men. It's
Mhm.
really interested in women being heard and not heard specifically.
Yeah.
And I really wonder why, like, this is not a criticism against Craig or anything, but I wonder why Craig felt like that was something that he had to tell.
Mm.
Why that is really important to him. Because, this movie is incredibly interested in exploring just males versus as males interacting with females and
Mhm.
our expectations when a male and a female share the screen together, right? So the first half hour of this movie is some of the best horror slash tension filmmaking I've ever seen in my life. Like this is I think about this movie in sort of like a 3-act structure, right? So you've got this first half hour with Tess and Keith, and then
Mhm.
the second act is introducing AJ and his issues, and then that kind of ends when he is sort of like thrown in he falls into the sort of pit, and then we kind of like get the flashback, which is put into like a 4:3 ratio, which is cool. I love like the way that they use
Yeah.
ratios, and
Looks like a
s-
90s music video.
yeah, like spherical lenses, like so it's like a fisheye lens, and it's so like wide angle, and then like that kind of starts this sort of like third act, which is how everything plays out. but I really dig this movie because like it's set in Detroit, so there's all this like dilapidation and um
RoboCop. Yeah, of course.
just fucking RoboCop walks through the door and just annihilates the mother.
Yeah, just fucking.
You are an abomination.
Yeah. I am
But
sorry.
but not only that, man. Like Cregger in casting Bill Skarsgård, he knows exactly what he's doing.
Oh
Skarsgård
yeah.
is playing against type, or leaning into it so heavily in this first half hour because we know him as a villain, right? Like we know that he's
Yeah.
Pennywise from It. We know that we just fucking watched John Wick Chapter 4. He's a fucking villain in that. He's always cast as this antagonist, and as you're watching Keith interact with Tess, I in my fucking fourth viewing am picking up more and more things that is just like that seems a little suspicious on Keith's part. Like, why is he
Right.
like? Why did he just give the area code and then sort of like blah blah the rest of the number? Like, you know what I mean? And like, why is he? Why is he trying to stop her from leaving? And like, why is he really trying to get her to drink the tea and the wine? And it's like there's so much here that plays on the expectation of a woman interacting with a man alone, like without cameras,
Right.
without other people. And I think it really does that tension really well because honestly, Keith turns out to be a nice fucking guy. There's
Right.
nothing villainous about him. There's nothing.
Yeah, he's
there's
like
nothing
one of.
right. There's nothing sinister at all. Whereas AJ is a completely different beast altogether. AJ is someone who is downplaying his sexual assault.
Mhm.
He's very much of the no, I can do better, I can fix this, I can whatever. And from his perspective, the sexual assault is not that. It's not a big deal. It was
Right.
not. It was something that was kind of like no, and then like even just the way he talks to his friends, like the whole "what up, faggot," like the whole like all of that
Right.
stuff. And by the way, I didn't say faggot. I'm quoting a character, so don't come at me.
No,
But
absolutely. No, if somebody says something horrible, I'm not going to quote you. I'm not going to say N word when you said it, motherfucker. Like, no, you
Right,
dug
right.
this hole. Now you're just making me
Exactly.
into a racist.
Exactly. But man, I just thought that this was outstanding from start to finish. I think the end is a little it's a little abrupt. I was like, oh, okay, is that all
Oh,
right?
yeah.
No worries.
Yeah.
But other than that, man, this was great, man. Like just the build up and just storytelling without like exposition, right? So like even just like her going outside and seeing all the houses, and it's like, why is this one house so well looked after? Like what
Right.
is going on here?
Yeah, yeah. I was
Um,
sitting there going, why does Justin Long own property in Michigan? Like,
right.
that's the first thing. I was like, what the fuck is going on? I was like, oh, he's probably from the area and like got big, moved out to California. And I was like,
Yeah,
oh, okay, cool. I
I
was
can
just
say
wondering, like,
that.
what the fuck is this guy doing in Michigan?
Right, right. But I adore this movie, man. For like this is the first film that he's directed by himself.
Hmm.
So I was really like blown away, man. Like this felt like an A24 movie, but it's not an A24 movie.
Turned him down.
They turned him down?
They
Oh, I
turned
didn't
him
know that.
down.
That's
He was like
wild.
20th Century Fox was like the only one that really kind of gave me a shot. And I think a $4 million budget, like $40 million box office or
Crazy,
something,
man.
like
This was
crazy good numbers.
this was kind of a phenomenon when it came out, man. Yeah, I thought this was brilliant. I thought this was absolutely brilliant. What about the set on the mother, eh? She's got a nice rack.
The whole time I was watching, I was like, "Whoa, you look like from Dusk Till Dawn." It's like the one that has the
Mm,
mouth on its
yeah.
stomach, the vampire. And then this, in a weird way, I love stories like this because they do weirdly remind me of From Dusk Till Dawn. When I was a kid, From Dusk Till Dawn was the first thing I saw with like two different groups that had not interacted with each other and eventually meeting in the middle. I'd never
Mm,
seen a movie like that before. So every time I see that now, I think of From Dusk Till Dawn.
yeah.
And, of course, this a horror movie, monsters, blah, 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 blah.
To quote Creed from The Office, "Au natural, baby." Swing low, sweet chariots.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a guy in a like a full
Yeah.
body.
Yeah.
I was like, holy hell. And absolutely terrifying. Like at first used like so
Oh, my
used
God.
so well, and then by the end of the movie you are kind of like, just fucking shoot her, man.
Yeah, right.
Like, just
Exactly.
shoot her.
That's
Like
exactly it.
it's not, I don't want, but what's going to happen after this? Like the life it's like the life that this woman has lived, which is
You're
crazy
about to
because
say thing. You
yeah,
piece
hell
of
yeah,
shit.
it was.
You
Because this movie,
piece of shit.
this movie sets it up like she's some kind of like 7 foot tall Chernobyl abomination,
Mhm.
and the guy literally Andre is like, yeah, that's just a woman who's lived there for 40 years.
Right.
I was like,
a copy of a copy of a copy.
yeah, and what? Drink mercury? Like what the fuck? like I was like, oh, it's the incest and the sexual assault. That's right.
One thing that I couldn't sort of reconcile, that I've been struggling to reconcile, is the timeline a little bit. Because Andre says that she is a copy of a copy of a copy, right? And when we see Frank in his flashback, he's kind of like, gathering like the stuff for the baby delivery, whatever. For me, it was like hard to reconcile. But then I was like, we don't really know when Frank started this sort of
Oh
like thing.
yeah.
And I, it's so fucked up, but I think he assaulted the children very young.
Oh yeah.
And
No, definitely.
in my mind, it like that timeline starts to catch up because
Right.
he's
12-year-olds giving birth to incest babies and stuff.
That's exactly it, and we don't know how long he's been doing it. So
no, I was just reading off your Pornhub searches. Sorry.
Oh
no,
yeah,
sorry, Jesus. What were you saying? No, I'm just so I was like, yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. He's giving me the cut it off sign. Yeah, cut that. Oh, okay, sorry. No, when you start kind of paying attention to the timeline, it is kind of like, oh yeah, because this is what the 80s when they talk about Reagan being president. So that's mid 80s, I think.
But my point is, like, by that point, I think he's doing
a pro.
It for like, he's a pro
enough.
Because his neighbor goes up to him and says the neighborhood's going to shit, and the neighborhood's going to shit because these women are going missing, I think, and that's why they're not able to sell these properties. That's why they're like, we have these abandoned properties. And like, I mean, like, that obviously adds to what Craig is kind of like going for here, is that the women are not being heard. Like, the investigations are going nowhere because no one's looking into them. No one's taking these things seriously. But yeah, man, I love that movie. Sorry, I love this movie. I think this is a fantastic pick, man. I was like, this guy's gonna choose the fucking Craft 2 or some shit, isn't he? But this is a great pick, man. This is awesome.
Yeah, thanks. I think there's definitely something also with like Detroit never really bounced back after I think like the automotive industry collapsed in the 80s. Like there was I think a big boom between 1948 and 1976 when the auto industry was at its economic peak. Detroit lost more than 130,000 manufacturing jobs between 48 and 67. So even back then.
So I'm not from there. I don't know too much about it, but I know that, yeah, like, Detroit is sort of dilapidated, but it also looks pretty great. Like, when she's in the city meeting her interviewer, I'm like, that looks pretty cool. But I think it's also the state of Michigan too, right? Like, the state of Michigan is also a little bit sort of like dingy. I mean, like, when I listen to people who are from like Flint, Michigan. Like, I listen to a lot of Armchair Expert. Yeah. I mean, like, Dak Shepard is from Michigan, and he talks about, various places in Michigan that he grew up in, and it's like, back then it was on the decline, and like now it's, I guess it's on the rise a little bit now, right? I mean, that's my understanding.
Yeah, I don't know. I've got a buddy who lives there. I need to ask her about it because I've always thought of Michigan like Detroit, RoboCop, Home Improvement, the sitcom. Like there's a few things that I always think of when I think of Michigan. But
I think of Roger Moore. That's right.
Roger Moore.
Roger Moore, the documentarian, Bowling for Columbine and Fahrenheit 9/11, and
Roger Moore is James Bond. Wait, you fucking idiot.
Hold on. What's his?
Oh,
Isn't this
I know who you're talking about, but now I can't fucking think of his. The listeners are screaming at their
I
Michael
know.
Moore. Michael Moore.
Michael Moore. Jesus Christ. Roger Moore.
I
fucker.
love Roger Moore. Yeah, I loved Michael Moore and Bowfinger. I don't even know if that's a Roger Moore movie. Danny
No,
is
it's not.
fucking killing me.
Gold. Bowfinger.
Bowfinger.
Oh my God.
Whatever.
Goldfinger.
But yeah, let's jump into this. Let's talk about Barbarian. Man, one of the things I noticed right off the rip is when she pulls up to this house, the diegetic to non-diegetic screams, like all the, and then it stops once you get into the car. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. It's kind of like hearing music outside the car that you can't hear inside the car. It's like those screams are real. And that's the first thing I thought was like, that's not like a creepy effect. That's something happening in this world. Like, even if it's, metaphorical or a symbolism or something or blah, blah, blah.
Do you use Airbnb at all?
I have before. I don't anymore. I literally started following Airbnb horror stories on Instagram, and now it's just ruined me, and I can't. I can't do it.
There's quite a few out there. There's definitely quite a few out there. There's obviously there's this. There's another movie that was directed by Dave Franco of all people. It's called The Rental.
I've heard about that.
Yeah, it's a decent movie. It was fine. But it's all about it's another horror situation with an Airbnb. I mean, I don't use it too often, but after this movie, dude, I'm just like,
yeah, hell no. Stuff like this always comes around and like kills an industry, Right. Like movies like this come out and it's like, this could happen, and people go like, fuck.
100%. Well, I mean, when I'm in a hotel, I think about the goddamn sheets, right? So what the fuck?
Yeah, bed bugs and stuff like that. I'm not thinking there's
I'm thinking about cum.
Yeah, bed bugs and cum. Zohab's like, I got to make sure I don't sleep in the same spot I made last night. No. Roll around and make myself into a sticky bun.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Looking like a goddamn cream bun over here.
Zoe the cinnamon roll. No.
I'm so fucked. It's too early for this shit, dude. Yeah. It's 10:44 a.m. on a Saturday.
Put your glaze inside my hole. No, all right, I'm done. So yeah, at the beginning of this movie, I really like all of this, like right away, just the we see the repeating phone calls, like right away. We have a pulse. Like you can feel the kind of like BPM of the movie. Like when you're recording music, you always have that metronome, and I feel like the metronome to this movie starts. It's raining. Can't find the keys. Your phone's going. It's like just fucking shut up. Like I immediately get so irritated when all of that stuff like starts happening at once. And what? Oh God, I am so sorry. I do not even know her name.
It's
Georgia Campbell.
Tess. Oh, Georgina Campbell.
Georgina Campbell. Thank you.
I knew her from an episode of Black Mirror. She's in one of the best episodes called Hang the DJ. It's really good. It's very popular, that episode. But she is great in this movie, by the way.
Yeah.
I think the best performances are given here in this fucking first 30 minutes, man. Like these two are absolutely electric. Like they have chemistry as well. Like when it actually starts to get going. But yeah, Tess is an interesting character because she rolls up to this Airbnb and she's ignoring these calls from Marcus, right? Like I mean, like there's something happening there. Like she's going through some strife or something like that. It's just interesting because like Marcus is this. Because we do find out that Tess is actually, once she gets grabbed by the mother, she's down there for 4 weeks, dude. 4 weeks.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know how long she was down there.
So when the way I pieced that together is because when Justin Long calls the sort of like rental management company or whatever, they're like, yeah, we haven't rented that out since like for 4 weeks.
Okay. Because thank you for bringing that up. Because my question was going to be like, wait, so who rented it to these motherfuckers? Because they just got here, and I'm like, no, but in your timeline, it makes a lot more sense. The people have been gone for weeks,
right? I mean, I paced that together this viewing, so I was like,
look at you.
Yeah, I know. I was like, how long has she been down there, dude? And I'm like, she's been down there for 4 weeks drinking this very
baby
woman,
bottle pops, whatever.
Yeah, with hair on it too.
Ooh,
Yeah.
Because it's a baby bottle pop, baby bottle pop.
You look
You
like a
guys
big
have those?
baby doing it too. Like, 'cause
Yeah,
you're
my
bald.
big bald head. Did you guys have those in Australia? Baby bottle pops?
I don't know. Oh yeah, we do. Yeah, we do.
Okay, good. Man, I love it when a reference crosses that ocean.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and you know, a lot of the stuff I don't think we see it until later, but the house is like the house is kind of a symbol for what's going on with Keith in there because there are literal 7 red flags around this house going like condemned, meth pit, condemned. It's like and the fact there is no way I would sleep. I would go to the city, park in front of the police station, and sleep
Definitely.
in my car.
Definitely.
Like, there's no way. There's no fucking way. Especially when there's like, if
Well,
I'm going with Lindsay or something like that, absolutely not.
Are you talking about in terms of like the neighborhood that this place is in, or
Right.
going
Right.
into this random like sharing this place with this random
Well,
person?
I think like the situation in and of itself is kind of like Keith is kind of like the house, and there's all these red flags. He's being way too nice. He's kind of being a little pushy. He makes tea for her, you know, and it's very presumptuous kind of stuff. And there's, I mean, the movie, he is one giant red herring. You know, it's like, hey, look over here, and it's nothing's really, you know, nothing's really going on at all. But I think that that's also an analogy for what's going on. Look at the fucking neighborhood. Like, why would you stay here?
Right.
There's literally a red flag after red flag.
I don't. But
after
I don't
red
think
flag.
I don't think she's seen the neighborhood until the morning, right? I mean, because
I thought that too, but when she goes inside, he's like, "Come on, you've seen the neighborhood. Like, I don't think it's a good
Right.
idea for you to sit out
Oh,
there."
that's
And
a
I
good
was
point.
like, because the first time I was like, "What's wrong with the neighborhood?" And then in the morning she goes out, and I'm like, "Oh, Jesus Christ!" I was like, "This looks
Yeah.
like there's better neighborhoods in fucking Chernobyl." Not to make another reference, but I'm slowly starting to believe this whole thing takes place in Chernobyl.
In the Ukraine.
Yeah. At one point, Justin Long's running, and he drops like a, you know, like a picture of Vladimir Putin. He's like, "Oh no, I shouldn't drop this picture of this fantastic man." Tucks it in his coat and runs off.
Well, do you know that it was actually shot in Bulgaria? This movie?
Yeah, I just fucking said that. No,
Oh,
that's
you
what I was
actually?
saying
Sorry,
when I watched
I
the
just-
What
I
Is
just
Kid You
tuned
Know
out.
stream. Shut the fuck up. Then maybe I didn't say specifically where he was filming this. No, I think I did. But anyways, yeah, they filmed this in Bulgaria, and I was like, what the fuck? And I think he said
Right.
strictly it was a financial thing, 100%. Which is crazy. Like Michigan and Bulgaria, like that is
Right.
fucking crazy.
You know, your city's fucked up when you've got a fucking 1-to-1 comp in a dilapidated European city. I mean, it's not. I don't think Bulgaria is dilapidated, but no, I'm just being a dick.
I don't know much about Bulgaria at all, honestly. I'm sure like most
Victor
places,
Krum.
Victor Krum. Oh, yeah. Okay. For a second there, I was like, Victor Krum. I was like, are you having a stroke?
Jesus.
but
Dude,
yeah,
the lighting in this scene is
the street light and
gorgeous,
stuff,
dude.
and
when he's
and
inside, when she's inside, and yeah, it go on.
Part of me always wonders, like, because I'm sitting there and I'm watching this, I'm like, I wonder how, like, the logistics of, okay, it needs to be raining outside, because surely they're not going to, if it's not intended for the scene, it's not on the camera. They probably weren't like, oh, well, it's raining, we just got to shoot around it. Like, what are the logistics of making that happen? It's like, that's got to be a fucking nightmare, and being outside and shit. Like, now I watch movies from this very, like, I get into the story, but then I'm also like, man, that must have been a fucking nightmare working outside in the rain on location. Like, because I think it was Hank Azaria, however you want to say it, talked about doing Godzilla in 1998, and he was like, it was the most horrible experience in my life because it was raining the entire time. I was like, oh, that's gotta suck.
I just rewatched that on the treadmill. Pretty good fucking treadmill movie. Terrible movie, but good treadmill movie.
Right.
There is one. I mean, like, there's one shot that I was really curious about. It's when she's at the door and she's like, I'm just gonna go sleep in my car, and Keith is like, trying to coax her in, like, getting her to stay. She is like shot like directly in front, so it looks like she's talking directly to the camera. But Keith, like, when we look at Keith, it's like at an angle, and you can see the door in the background. That, like, the door is always just like almost always in the shot, and I'm just like, you're not coming like this whole thing is like you're not just coming in to stay with Keith, you're also coming in to stay with the
Yeah,
mother, and it's just
it's
like,
looming.
oh, it's
It's
so
fucking
good,
looming.
it's so good.
Yeah, I thought for sure when this first started, I was like, yeah, I think it's just way too much of a coincidence for, for him to be there and him just happen to be like a fucking murderer who broke in and she happens to show up. It's like, I just don't see this being that kind of movie. And I felt like as it went on, um, at one point, excuse me, at one point I was watching it, and when he first goes down into the tunnel and then you can't hear him anymore, and I was like, well, he must be in on it. How the fuck did he know
Mm.
there was a door there? And it's like, no, he found it just like she did. And I'm like, oh wow, this movie really just it's like, god damn it, every time you think you've got something figured out, it just takes a turn.
Yeah, there is no point in this movie where you can predict where it's going,
Right.
which absolutely works in its favor. I wanted to let's talk about Keith and because we know now that we've seen this movie, we've seen all three acts, that there is an interest in sexual assault in this movie in terms of just
Hmm.
like how women um are ignored, or like how situations like those arise. And um Keith is I I've thought about him a little bit, and there's no like rapey vibes about him or anything after, like, once it gets going, once they're more
Hmm.
comfortable with each other, and like once we know that this is an actual amicable sort of like situation. But there is a moment after he, sets the duvet, they share a little connection at one moment, right? It's very awkward. She kind of says, "Oh, okay, like good night," but like he is waiting for an invitation, I feel like. I feel
Mm.
like because there are two very, very small moments of like awkwardness in that scene where it's like, I know I'm jumping ahead here, but like I don't know. I
Mm.
feel like we can take this half hour as like a chunk, but
Hmm.
um, like there are two very awkward situations there, and like I said, I think Keith is waiting for an invitation, not for sex or anything like that. Or well, actually, maybe for sex, but I don't know. But something to progress their relationship,
Hmm.
and because it's very obvious that Keith likes her, it's very obvious that Tess likes Keith, or is becoming more acclimated and more comfortable with him. But I think the movie is interested in exploring what happens when she repeatedly starts, like when Keith is interested and she repeatedly doesn't kind of like let him in.
Hmm.
And we don't get that fully explored, but like in that one situation where it's like, oh, I just made you bed sheet and we just shared a wine, and we got
Right.
very close, and what, you're not going to you're not into me, like, we're not going to seal the deal, what's going on? Like that's the kind of like like I said, I don't think Keith is he's definitely not AJ, right? Keith is not
Right.
AJ, but there are
But he
shades
would definitely
to,
have if she came on to him, he would
yeah,
absolutely have
a
sex with her.
100%. And I think he
A
was
woman he met 3 hours before. That's
definitely,
fucking crazy. You have no idea what somebody has in this day and
definitely.
age.
And man, Bill Skarsgård, he's a fucking looker. He's a Skarsgård, for God's sake, man. Like,
Sure.
have you seen his goddamn brother? Jesus. Um,
Yeah, I don't care if it's like,
the
you
guy's a
want a
Norse god.
balloon?
uh, but like, yeah, do you know what I'm saying? Like the movie has like these three
No,
sort of like
yeah.
three there's
Shades of
yes.
shit.
It has three men in this movie who are kind of like doing heinous shit on different levels, right? Keith is on the lower end of the spectrum, AJ is in the middle, and obviously Frank is fucked up, right?
Right.
But all of them are capable of monstrosity. It's just
Well,
they're
yeah,
not
and
all, yeah. Go ahead.
no, I definitely I understand where I think Keith, if you're on a scale, Keith is like point like oh 01, point
Mm,
oh 02. Like, he's a little persistent. She says, "No, I don't want tea." He makes her a cup anyways. It's like,
right.
did you just not fucking hear what I said? Like, that would annoy me, where I'm like, "Why did you make that? I'm not going to drink it." Like
Definitely.
that would annoy me. But I think also, like, yeah, there is that kind of like, he doesn't get pushy, he's not upset, like he's totally like, but I feel like there's nothing wrong with like, hey, if you are open to having sex with this person, that's your thing.
Yeah.
But if she doesn't want to pursue it, then he makes the right, okay, cool, have a good night, see you later,
But he doesn't do
and
that
it's like,
straight away. He doesn't, like, if you watch the scene again where he's making the duvet right after that, he kind of lingers a little bit. Like there's a little bit of
Mm.
lingering, and it's just like, oh, okay, you know what I
Is
mean?
that well, I wonder, is that him expecting something, or is that like kind of natural sexual tension
I
now?
think
Like,
that's the
because
question. That's
now's
the
the time to
question.
say goodbye.
Yeah,
And it's like, and neither of them are really saying,
goodbye.
I
Yeah,
think she eventually is like, okay, see ya,
right.
and I think that really kind of seals the deal. But I've like, it reminds me of the Lenny Bruce thing of like, as I don't put it beyond Keith. He's I think, what, a musician, like a jazz musician, I take
Right,
it.
yeah. He's in some kind of band or something. That
Right.
apparently does really well because she expected them to buy out the whole block, right?
Yeah. And I think that there's, yeah, I think that that's one thing that definitely helps with this. The fact that she's like, oh, I know this guy has verified information that, like, there's no way he would know this about me, like, coming, it's not like he could study a bunch of stuff and get it all figured out. And then, and it's like, it's a natural kind of thing, that they've clicked. Um, and yet, no, I'm watching it now. I definitely think there is a moment where it's like he's kind of like, and she goes, no, and he goes, okay, and that's it. I think it's a pinch of natural tension, but at the same time, it's definitely him, like,
It's
him trying
definitely
to
there.
wave and
It's
her
definitely
going,
there.
nah.
Right.
Yeah. But it's best case scenario. That's exactly like it. There's been situations where, like, women have like, and I'm like, no, and they're like, okay, cool. There's nothing wrong with you being interested, but it's like, you can't be an AJ or it's Frank, right? There's the
Frank, yes, correct.
Frank, Joe Chill
Joe Chill, yeah.
from Batman Begins and
Well,
Mandy. That
he's
guy's.
a Nolan guy. He's in Tenet as well. Richard Brake is his name. He was in
Hmm.
Kingsman for a little bit. He probably I'm not gonna say most famously, but he played the Night King from Game of Thrones, the White Walker
Oh.
who led them all. But yeah, he's
Hmm.
um he's good. He's fucking terrifying. He's got a terrifying look about him, man.
Yeah, from what I read, I guess he said he went and saw like a showing of it one night, and he's like, as there was a group of kids coming up, and they turned their flashlight on their phone to see their way up the aisle,
Oh,
and the
that's so
light
good.
caught my face, and I was looking at them, and they all fucking screamed.
That's so
It's like,
good.
that's hilarious.
He's got such an antagonist face,
Hmm.
like, it's terrifying.
Absolutely. Um, well, and what I think is interesting, like, once we all get kind of like settled down and she starts looking for hotels, there's no hotels. Like, we're really kind of like setting the scene here. What do you think about him rambling about, like, basically presenting the situation as it is out for everybody? Like, I think, for me, I'll be honest, I am a person who does stuff like that. There are times where it's like, God, you need to not explain what
I
you saying it
think
out loud and explaining it is only making it worse. And it's like, yeah, that's right.
is this podcast about to reveal that we're fucking terrible people, terrible men?
Yeah,
Is
that we're
this
monsters.
right? No, I do it too, especially in awkward situations. I actually
Right.
did it yesterday in like on a Zoom meeting with my boss because like she is kind of like technologically illiterate, so I had to explain it through her, like through something
Mm,
with her. And yeah, I was like, I found myself rambling because like she's a new like sort of like, but she's an executive level, like she's like up there, and
right.
I'm just like, god damn, like I gotta stop rambling, dude, like and she's
Well,
very
and it's
kind, she's like nodding and like listening, but I'm just like, she probably thinks, shut the fuck up, like
yes. There's this weird, it's not like you have to prove yourself, but like, you can tell that in the conversation you're on the back foot. And I feel
right,
like that's where Keith is on this, where he's like, I'm on the back foot right now and I'm off balance,
right.
and I'm trying to compensate for that, because I do it too. It's exactly, I over explain things, and I end up going into, like, I just state a bunch of facts, and it's like, it's like I state them like I'm autistic, like it's just cold, just and it's like, man, you got to be a little bit more, think about what you're saying before you say it,
No,
like,
I
kind of
totally
thing.
agree, but especially in these circumstances when, well, you and I are watching this movie and we're kind of like analyzing Kate's we're wanting to know his motivations, right? And so is Tess, right? Like Tess is wanting to know what his motivations are for like getting her to stay, and she is probably analyzing every word and every sort of like the way that he presents the information, Whereas like that's not really something that he's thinking about. He really likes this girl, right? I mean, like we know that he really
Hmm.
likes this girl, so he wants to. He's trying to court her. Like I think there's a combination of he's trying to court her, and he's also trying to look out for her, right? I mean, like there's like it's a combination of those two things. So yeah, I think like Keith he's a rambler like me, like how I just rambled.
Hmm.
But also
No, I feel you.
Um, I I actually wanted to pivot and talk about Tess a little bit because
Hmm.
Tess is also an interesting character, and the way Cregger writes her is very very interesting. I don't think he's trying to make accusations about Tess or women in general, but she breaches his privacy multiple times. I mean,
I'll be honest.
yeah,
First 10 minutes, I was like, I don't like her. And
right,
I was straight up. I was like, if this were a dude doing this, I'd be like, hey,
right,
motherfucker. Hey, motherfucker. Like, that would be
right.
my first reaction. Then I'm like, I don't. But the
She
thing
she
is,
snoops
though,
through his like toiletries and stuff, and she snoops through his wallet and takes a photo of the wallet. Like
yeah.
it's a situational thing, and it is one of those
uh,
things of like, i- is it showing that this is what women have to do in a
Right,
situation
right,
like
right, right,
this? Is
right.
this what
And
they're
this,
driven to do? Like
imagine this is your wife, your mother, or your daughter,
mm,
and they do all this stuff, and you go, hell yeah.
yeah. I
You
was like,
immediately go,
when I
fuck yeah.
first saw this, I was like, oh, she's fucking clever. Like to take that,
Hmm.
like the way she's locking the doors, the really like they Gregor wants you to know that she's locking these doors. It's great, but like the really
Yeah.
like close up shots is it's brilliant because it is she is shown to be very very competent. Like like she's doing that thing with the light,
Hmm.
like with the mirror, the reflection and stuff. She's very resourceful.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, and I think no, I definitely agree with you, and it just shows. I think it's more so like our gut reaction is like, given the situation that she's in, I completely understand it. I think like, but it doesn't make it any less of an invasion of this totally
Definitely.
innocent guy's like privacy. That's the problem. Is like, it's unfortunate. It's kind of like that whole argument about security versus freedom. Like, well,
Sure.
you can have total security if you give up. We can go through your shit and blah blah. I think that it's sad collateral damage for a much bigger problem.
Right.
I think that's the thing is like, I cannot blame her one bit for going through
No,
any of that
absolutely
shit.
not. Yeah, no, I don't blame her at all. To be honest, I was like, that was very
She's
clever. But
still a
like,
fucking bitch. I mean, she's still, no, I'm just,
well, that's another thing that I wanted to talk about is like from a writing perspective, you need to make Tess um likable and
hmm,
watchable. Cregger really sort of like walked a tightrope here. Because not he made her a resourceful character, but also he made her a character who willingly comes inside and stays with this strange
yeah,
man and makes all these choices that a a normal person probably won't do. But she's I guess she's very driven for this interview. Um, and yeah. Oh, by the way, I know, just like little things I noticed is like when she raises the fact that he left his wallet in the room and he kind of like runs around the corner like as if like oh shit she found the wallet like like if you're watching it from that perspective of like the fact that if you do think that Keith is sinister he's like why does he run to get the wallet it's like well just like little
right.
things like that it's good stuff.
I feel like it wouldn't surprise me at all if they took a page out of like Mary Herron's book for American Psycho,
Yeah, yeah.
where like Willem Dafoe, they filmed it where he thought Patrick was innocent, he wasn't sure, and he was 100% sure he was guilty, and they just kind of spliced it all
Mm,
together.
yeah.
And I feel like we do warm up to Keith like as it goes on. We definitely like warm up to it. To him as like a character, but there's definitely a lot of things that like him calling out in the night and him, like you said, running after the wallet and just these little things were like, I don't know if he's a jazz musician. I think he might be part of like she said
He's part of
artist.
some band.
Yeah, he's a band or just like an actual art because they talk about having a collective, and I was like,
Oh
okay,
right,
is this
okay.
like an art commune or like what? I don't know. But either
but but
way,
but also him knowing the movie right I mean like she's
hmm,
like like the amount of conveniences, like the amount of like, oh my god, like this thing happened, like this thing happened, like the fact that the one movie, this independent movie that like my interviewer made, like
Right.
what a wild coincidence. And like when I was watching this movie, I was like kind of rolling my eyes. I'm like, oh, this is too convenient. Like he set this situation up. Like it's just it's good stuff.
Yeah.
It's
What are the odds?
definitely.
Well, and I think I think that I don't know, because that's one of the only major coincidences in this to me, is the fact that and all the coincidence is that she,
Well, there's the double
what,
booking, right? Between Home
yeah, the
Away
double
and
book,
Airbnb.
which I mean, that does happen, like a
Sure.
double booking happens like all the time. But I think that the main thing for me is like, okay, well, or not the main thing, but, so what, this woman made a documentary that I guess that she wants to be her researcher, and the previous documentary she made was about jazz musicians or whatever. And like, I don't know, it doesn't super surprise me that like a guy who's an artist or whatever, basically kind of knows about a small independent like documentary. I'm like,
Mm.
yeah, he looks like the fucking type. No, I'm just kidding. But it's
Just
the way I feel when someone's like, man, have you ever seen Man from Earth? I'm like, you saw Man from Earth? Like,
right, right. That makes sense. One little cut that I love the editing in this movie, by the way. When he's like, oh, like we'll just chat until like your drying is done. Oh, I'm sorry, like your washing is done, because they're washing the
Mhm.
sheets, and then it's like, this is how you know that they're becoming more comfortable with each other, because there's a cut where he like warms her up, finally charms her, she's finally smiling, and then it cuts to the dryer just completely stopped. And it's like, oh, so you guys are still
Mm,
talking after the drying has stopped, right? Like
yeah,
you guys now want to be here, and you guys now want to be conversing with each other. Like the ice is
yeah.
broken. It's good
Yeah,
stuff.
I dig this. I definitely like all this first like half hour, and I'll be honest. Like at first, I was like, surely she doesn't. Surely she does not bang this fucking guy. Like there's no way. And I'm glad, because I feel like it would have been a little too like, okay, come on, like what is this, American Werewolf in London? Like he immediately gets to bang Jenny Agutter, and I'm like, get the fuck out of here.
I
Like
like that
oh you.
she. Oh, my apologies.
No, I was saying you show up to the wrong house and it's fucking Bill Skarsgård. Oops, no, I tripped and fell on his dick. And you're like, come on, man.
I mean, he's a gorgeous guy. I mean,
Yeah,
she's a
she's a
gorgeous
gorgeous
woman.
woman. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I really like that she lays out her perspective. Like, what if she was the one in the house and he was the one who
Hmm.
knocked on the door?
Right.
Because yeah, that's exactly what would
Again,
happen, right?
it's a double standard, but it's like, nope,
Yeah,
that
yeah,
checks out.
yeah. Absolutely checks out.
Absolutely. Um, yeah, again, really dig all this. We really, really do come to like Keith's. I think we still have our guard up, but it definitely warming up to him. And after this, really, really fun, evening of back and forth and kind of getting to know each other. One thing that I thought, because what threw me off is like, so I was like, okay, so he's a musician or something. I was like, I figured like a saxophone player, and I don't know why I thought of that. But when she's like, oh, you're out of breath that easily. And I was like, wait a minute. And I was like if he plays
Oh,
trumpet or saxophone or something, and I was like,
because
well, no,
your guard is up. You're
yeah,
overanalyzing. Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
my
I get
guard
it.
is
Yeah.
up. And I was like, what the fuck is he doing? But she ends up going to this job interview. We see the neighborhood in broad daylight around her. Death from below is on one of the houses, like
Nice.
spray painted, and I was like, that's great.
The
Um,
we did go over I like, and there's not too much to it, but like the night, like what happens in the night, right? So she wakes up and the door's kind of like
oh
ajar,
yes,
and
thank
she's
you.
like, she definitely locked that door, and then she kind of like hears something, and it's like, oh god, what the fuck was that? Um, but that's another, like, and you have another coincidence where I guess Keith is like suffering from like night terror or something, right? Which adds to the like, what the fuck is really kind of going on here? Is this like a
Yeah,
haunting situation? Like,
I'll
are
be
there
honest though, like
spirits?
I think that there's part of you that go, is it even night terrors? Like night terrors can be like violent and they're really loud and angry. And it's like, he's really just kind of talking. Like I talk in my sleep sometimes. I don't do it as much anymore, but I used to talk in my sleep all the time. And it sounded a shit ton like that. Like not as loud.
I think,
yeah.
I know a doctor, her name's Dr. Melfi.
Yeah. Tell me about your feelings towards your mother.
Always with the fucking mother. I don't want to fuck my mother.
If you weren't right here right now, I'd smash your face into 1,000 pieces. But the
he's always trying to fuck it, dude. I love it.
Yeah, so right. But
any chance for a pity fuck?
Great. The one thing I didn't catch until rewatch just now was when she's standing and you see the door in the background. When she crosses the room to see Keith, you can see the door closed. I was like, holy shit, I missed that. I missed that.
You didn't catch that? Oh, that's so good.
No, I think I got up or something, but
I was doing some research last night, like 1 a.m. and like there's a website that's like, yeah, like it just like answers questions like that no one really asks. So it's like, why was Tessa's door open in the middle of the night? And literally, like the answer that this person wrote was, oh yeah, the doors kind of like close by themselves in this house, whatever. And I'm like, dude, no, like the mother was up here, like you heard the noise and you saw the door close in the background. What the fuck?
Yeah, this isn't the Starship Enterprise. These bitches don't open and close on their like maybe the basement one does. But,
yeah, right. One door does.
You think that's on purpose? You think that's something that Frank has set up?
That's cool. I didn't consider that at all. I just thought it was a coincidence, but yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe it is. At that point, I was still thinking, is this house haunted? I don't.
Right. One thing I really love is when she goes for this job interview. She meets Catherine. They talk. There's this really interesting shot from outside of her and Catherine talking, and then we do like this fade kind of pull back, but it's bars. It's these wood. It's like this architecture outside, but it's these wooden bars, and it's two women behind it. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And the only faces you can see in that shot are three women. There's two men with their backs turned, but you can see the women clearly behind the bars. And I was like, wow, that is crazy, insane. Like, just really great. What do you want to call it? Subtext, whatever you want to call that. But the homeless man, basically, he approaches her as calmly as possible.
In a very irrational way.
I'm gonna slit your fucking throat. She's like, oh, Jesus Christ.
He's definitely considered his approach.
Right. I murdered John Benet Ramsey. He's like, oh, what the fuck? Get away from me.
Brightmoor in Detroit is a real suburb.
This is Brightmoor.
Yeah, that has crime issues, and I do love that they kind of like wove the story into that a little bit, which was great.
Yeah. Well, I wonder because they did film like the exteriors all in Brightmoor.
Oh, okay.
And cool. I'm like, so it was like, wow, I wonder how much it cost to like, they basically had to fix up an entire house, or I guess like the outsides of them. But I wonder why. What are the logistics of like why film in one place and then not the other? I wonder what the logistics of that were. But he basically runs up on her, tells her to, he doesn't say get out of the house. He goes, get out of that house.
Right.
And I think that's very interesting.
He says, come up out of that house. Yeah.
Right. Come up out of that house.
Just again, I love the way it's shot though. Like, I mean, it starts off as this like moving blur in the background, and it like kind of like ratchets up, and she starts, like digging for the keys, and yeah.
Yes. We get, basically her calling the cops, getting no response, kind of again setting like, it's kind of like when you watch those horror movies and it's like, oh, I don't have any cell service. It's like, you need to shut down that avenue of like, you can't just call the cops and solve this. Like you have to think the movie is forcing you to kind of take this route for whatever reason. Oh, the bridge and Evil Dead 2 falls out. The phone line's cut, the power's out, like whatever, it's forcing it's forcing you to deal with this situation. Um,
Real quick,
and
have you read Jane Eyre?
no, but I know it's about an imprisoned woman.
Yeah, it's a nice little
Crazy.
foreshadowing. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's good stuff.
And I think it's interesting that it's Keith reading it. That's one of the things I find is interesting is like, man, this guy really is like, I don't know. I mean, I guess on paper you could be like, yeah, this guy is very like feministic. Like he's, I don't think has,
He's built like
I
a
think
woman.
if, well, it wouldn't surprise me if he, a very like supports women's rights equally and everything. Like
Sure,
I
yeah.
think he's, yeah, and there's times where he's like, yeah, of course, I would have sex with this person I just met, but no means no. That's okay. Like blah blah blah. But the she ends up calling the cops. There's basically no response. She goes and uses the restroom, and a little trip down the stairs is what introduces us to. I mean, man, I fuck. She gets this toilet paper. She gets locked in there. First thing first, I love the shot of her realizing the phone is on the table. It shows the
The
phone and
little
like,
zoom,
like,
dude.
oh man, I
Nice
loved
little
it.
insert, man. It's good stuff
Mm-hmm.
because it's like, oh, just without dialogue, just show
Mm-hmm.
us. Oh, it's great.
Show don't tell.
And then
Oh,
on
I
the
would.
key box, like outside as well, it's like fuck.
Yes. And I like that now that we're in the second half of the house, now we're getting those Sam Raimi like zoom ins and stuff.
Right.
Like we're getting those
Oh yeah,
weird
that's a
like
good
kind of
point.
shots.
Mm.
Um,
Real quick, before I forget, they're on
mhm.
Barbary Street and Barbarian. You know,
Yeah,
it,
I didn't figure that out
I'm an
until somebody
I'm an
said something.
Australian in Australia. It's good. Just I'm sure he like added that later in the script, and I'm just like, oh, that's a nice little touch.
Yeah, it's cute. Um, I oh shit, I forgot what I was gonna say. Um, but like
The
the
rope coming out of
interesting.
the wall, dude. Like it's like that's
Yes, the
what.
the rope the rope coming out of the wall blew my fucking mind. But it's these I love those like super super tight like shots on her realizing that she's basically stuck down here, and her pull it is literally, it feels like the when people talk about pulling, like when you pull a thread on a sweater and
Mm,
now you can't stop, and it's
for
like, and
sure.
that is what this is us pulling the thread on the story and getting dragged down, dragged down, basically the rabbit hole. But before we get down that rabbit hole, we're going to take a quick break, guys. We're going to grab something to drink, go empty our bladders. We'll be right back with the second half of our coverage of Barbarian. Don't go anywhere. And we're back. Thank you guys for hanging out while we took that little bit of a break. We are freshly squeezed, as we always used to like to say, coming at you with the second half of our coverage of Barbarian. We kind of stopped it right at this point where we're going down into the rabbit hole, which I think was perfect timing, because now this movie is about to take a giant fucking left turn. And I don't know about you, but I really, again, I think of shit like From Dusk Till Dawn. Like it, when I think of a movie that just takes a hard fucking right turn,
Changes like
but
genres completely. Yeah.
yeah, but it still can hold it. Like, and like at first, don't, this was a horror movie through and through, but it's just that the horror has changed. To now it's like, or what the fuck is going on here? There's this crazy complex like tunnel, you don't know what the fuck is going on. And I had a pinch of this ruined for me, that like I had seen like a small glimpse of Mother, like before seeing this, but I didn't know. I was like, okay, well, there's definitely something under the
Oh,
house
okay.
there. But I don't know what the fuck it is. So I know we're gonna come down here eventually, but
No, I had none of that ruined for me at all. Like I didn't know if there was another human, like an actual like person serial killer or some shit down there. I don't know at all.
yeah, I don't
I
know.
think
Joe
I think
Chill was gonna be down here.
right, exactly. I think the title Barbarian kind of gives it away that maybe there is something. I'm not going to say otherworldly, but something more
An
than
invader.
right. Yeah. I also just want to call out the score, dude. As soon as she takes a step over the threshold into the black,
Yes.
man, the whom, like the synth,
Yes.
because you also get something I forgot to mention right at the beginning when she takes a step into the house, and we cut to kind of like the Barbarian title card, and like this foreboding music plays. It's just like, at that time it's setting up this Keith character to be maybe like somewhat sinister, but in reality it's just like, fuck, you took your step into this house and there's no going back, man. And there's
Hmm.
the same thing like happening here. There's no going back because she walks in, turns the light on in that doorway, and man, like this place just looks like, it looks like tetanus, it looks like hepatitis, it looks like,
Oh
my
God,
god.
yes. Everything about this just screams like fucking no.
Right.
Like holy shit.
And we haven't even found the other door yet, like at this point.
Right. Right, and like at one point, I did kind of go like, okay,
Right.
where are we now? Like,
Mm.
are we in like Indonesia? Like, how far have we dug that that we're in this fucking place now? But her just kind of pulling the tether and kind of drawing us down the rabbit hole. Even though I knew that there was going to be something under the house, I did not expect this. I was like, oh
Right.
shit.
Yeah.
And there's just like nothing. As soon as you see like a room with that kind of bed, and you're like, oh God, like it's just the dread.
The video camera especially is
Yes.
well,
Yes.
obviously it's disturbing, but the fact, like looking at how old that video camera is, that gives us an indication as to how long this has been going on for.
Mm-hmm. And it's on fucking like a VHS tape from
Right.
like from the 90s.
Exactly. I got a question for you, because
Mhm.
after this, she obviously runs outside, and Keith makes a reappearance. At one point was Keith vindicated for you, like 100%? Were you like, because
I mean,
because
probably. No, I was going to say definitely not 100% until I saw his brains get bashed in. I think that kind of seals the deal for everybody.
yeah,
But
sure.
I don't know, man. Because when he disappears down there, and we don't know about the second door.
Mm,
When he disappears down there, I thought for sure, I was like, well, then he has to be a part of this. How else did he just totally disappear? And I was like, oh wait, no, there's this door. Maybe he's not. Blah blah blah. So honestly, I didn't really know until he got killed.
right. And I think that's the point. Like that's Cregger's intention, right? Like he wants you to keep on guessing about Keith until like the last moment, man. When that thing, I said thing. I'm sorry. When that woman comes running out of the fucking shadows, it just, yeah. I think I'm also in agreement with you, because you like all the way until like he gets down there and he kind of like disappears. Like it's like, oh shit, is he like, has he gone quiet so he can like pique her curiosity to get her down there again? Like,
Yes, to
oh
lure her.
yeah.
Yeah. That question definitely had me going. I mean, because he
A-
wants to go the other way, he wants to go further down, and I'm like, no.
And the insistence of asking her to wait by the door, like wait here, please don't go. Like just wait here, while I go check it.
Right.
Yeah, it's all very well done, very intricate.
Yeah, 100%. And the moment when she because she's already been locked out of this basement once, and the door goes to close, I 100% thought that it was going to lock. It was going to lock again, and that they were both going to be stuck down there. But I love her going and getting the chair and putting
Good
it up
stuff.
against the door and be like, "That's enough of that." Um, but and her shining the light down the hallway, just very very smart choices. What you don't really see in a lot of, I hate to say it, a lot of female leads, a lot of like especially the reputation that horror movies has. You don't really see a lot of that, and not until you sort of get like really cool like final girls characters and stuff. But the looking for him going all the way down these tunnels, and it just gets fucking worse and worse,
The
and you're like, oh
cages.
shit. Because we had just watched oh god, what is that movie we talked about on Bonus? Here it's called Final Prayer. I think in the rest of the world it's called like
Oh yeah. I can't
the
remember.
battleground or something. I
Mm.
can't remember. But here in the U.S., it's called Final Prayer, and it has a very, somewhat spoilers,
The
but it has a
Borderlands.
similar kind of Borderlands. It has a similar kind of theme with like an underground tunnel and shit. So we were like, oh fuck, what is this going to be about? And every layer down into the tunnel just gets worse and worse, and there's more doors, like, just these like metal barricades, the multiple cages, and the age of them. Like
Yeah.
that's the thing that kind of fucks you up as you go like, what the fuck? And like this is stuff that's like decades old, and you're just like, what in God's name is going on
Right.
here?
These like
And
gates that slide like from the side and stuff. Like how old are these things? You know.
right. But this goes on for a while until when Skarsgård comes out of the dark at her on his hands and knees, like, holy shit. And he says, this thing bit
Bit
me.
me. Yeah.
Somebody bit me. And I was like, okay, surely this is not going to take a turn into like zombie territory.
Right.
I was like, surely not. But
I am serious, and don't call me Shirley.
yeah, but yeah, the moment that like it's, I think there is something like that kind of like desperation on his face that I was like, okay, like here I'm kind of starting to believe because he's so fucking scared, but it's like not when she comes running up and grabs him by the head.
my
It
God.
was such a crazy like, even though I kind of knew that she was somewhat down there, it was such an insane left turn and incredible, the most violent part of the entire movie. It's just that you have to have that to, now we have to break this story in
Sure.
half.
Yeah.
And we jump over to Justin Long later, but I think that there's this like, you need that kind of a really hard strike to get that story to break and it to work. And I think they do it really, really well. What did you think of this?
Yeah, man. Well, I didn't. Obviously, I didn't see this coming. Like I said, there's no point in this movie where you can predict where it's gonna go.
Yeah.
But like in this moment, Cregger does such a great job at disarming you a little bit because they are arguing. Like there's no there's no kind of like, usually with jump scares, there's a moment about a couple seconds before a jump scare where you're like, okay, there's about to be a jump scare in a second. Like that doesn't happen in this because they're arguing this constant noise, and then it just comes out of the shadows, dude. It just
Yeah.
like the
Silent, just
dude, and it's like it takes a second for your eyes to adjust. It's like, what am I looking at here? Like, what?
Yes.
How do I register this? And Cregger like does such a good job of like in these early moments, sort of like doing like the Jaws thing of just kind of like hiding it a little bit, like
Hmm.
But like, yeah, man, like it decimates Keith, man.
Yeah, that is, it's like this to show like the, I mean, a human could do that to another human, but not in like that many licks. Like that was like, how many licks does it take to get the center of this guy's
Right.
fucking brain fluid? It was like just unbelievably quick and brutal. And the hard snap to Justin Long's character in this totally insane juxtaposition of a convertible at sunny California, the
Yeah,
sun's up, tops down.
because it's
I
like
thought that was
it's
insane.
genius. Yeah, it's genius. Like talk about like blowing up a balloon and just letting it pop, and then it's like, all right, now we're gonna blow up
Hmm.
this balloon again. Like let me grab another balloon and just like start blowing this shit up. Like you have built up this tension and kept building it up and building it up and building it up, and now you've like released it, and now we need some kind of like a breath of fresh air or another approach as to how we're going to set up the payoff of this movie. Because when we go to California, he's driving down the. I'm assuming it's the PCH, but like, he's just. It's like the brightness. The color palette changes. The music. The needle drop. Like he's smiling, like singing to himself. It's like what? How did we go from that to this? And it's like I
Right.
am very curious as to how you're going to make these two things connect.
hmm No, absolutely, and I think that it's a testament to like the pace of the story. Not only that, but like the hard juxtaposition. It's comedic. It's almost like a black.
For
Like there's
sure.
moments of it where it's like almost like a black comedy.
Yeah.
It's really really dark stuff. Like him tape measuring after finding it is
Oh my
hilarious,
god.
and like it's so cynical that like that's what somebody it's just like he's just the most awful person. And I told Lindsay, and I was like, $100, $100 says he survives this and she fucking dies. And then
Yeah.
there's a few moments where you're like,
Yeah.
wow, they really actually did it. um and kudos to Justin Long, because he's just one of those few guys that, not one of those few, but not many people can really do what Justin Long does, where he plays such a likable character in like
Definitely.
Dodgeball, Jeepers Creepers, like these early 2000s movies where he's kind of a fun kind of lead, and a great actor. I knew him from Waiting primarily,
Oh,
like in
okay.
high school, and
I would recommend if you haven't seen it, Kevin Smith's Zack and Miri Make a Porno. He is hilarious. He plays a gay
oh
porn star
yeah,
in that, man. Like he's just oh, he's so good.
he's if you've never seen Strange Wilderness with Steve Zahn,
Oh,
and it's got him in it, and at one point they're all sitting around a conference table, and he's like tattooed eyes on his eyelids, and he's stoned and he's knocked out, and they're like, what's wrong with his eyes?
he
It's fucking
loves. I
hilarious.
feel like he loves fucking with his eyes, dude. Like in this and in that you just mentioned, but also Jeepers Creepers, right? he gets the fucking.
Yeah.
Apparently,
Oh,
Cregger
oh, go ahead.
wanted Zac Efron for this role, because he kind of like envisioned him as like a beefcake kind of himbo, in his words.
Mm.
And then um, Efron wasn't able to take the role, and he decided to take the character in a different direction and casted Long for his quote warm and disarming and charming, lovable presence on screen, which which I agree, man. Like as he's kind of like going down. Yeah, like the energy is different, right? Like the energy of this movie is has now shifted. You know, we're not with these two tense characters who have different motivations. You know, now it's like different. Now you're following an actor who is up himself and thinks he's king shit. You know, and then he's kind of like brought back to the ground, and he's kind of like dealing with the fallout. But yeah, it's completely shifted.
Yeah, absolutely, and it really helps. I think in the same way they cast Bill Skarsgård against character is a very similar tale to Justin Long in this movie, where there's not a lot of movies where he's just like an outright villain. I can't really think of any off the top of my head where Justin Long's an antagonist. I'm sure there is, but I can't really think of one. And I think he's just like disarmingly charming, kind of actor. And we see basically his career, starting to fall apart. He's been, for lack of a better term, me too, rightfully so. And at first, the thing is, like, everybody loves Justin Long for the most part. That I was like, well, is it like, is this supposed to be like a comedy thing? Like, is it not true? And it's basically just ruining his life, like blah blah blah. And then slowly you kind of go like, oh no, he really is like a fucking bastard.
Yeah, he's a
Like you
fucking
really like
yeah.
at first you're because it's like, hey, it's guys, it's Justin Long, you love him, you like him, he's a funny guy. And it's like as it goes on, it's like, oh no, he's a total douche canoe.
Right.
Like this guy's fucking awful.
Well,
um
when he receives the call, right, and the board is kind of like telling him that um, if the pilot proceeds, it will be without you, or sorry, the words are it's unlikely that it will proceed with you involved, and it's such a board or slash corporate way to approach it, right? Like they're not saying the words "you're fired." They're saying if it proceeds, it's unlikely that you will be involved. And it's like, oh, okay, what a corporate way to approach it.
yes.
But yeah, he cuts through the shit, right? He's like, "You're telling me I'm fired," and then he's like,
Hmm.
and then obviously, like they have to agree with that, and then he says, "What? Like we're trying to, as the audience, we're trying to assess the veracity of the complaint, right? So we're trying to assess um how serious this is, and that's what he's trying to do too, right? Like they start off by saying, "Oh, you were sexually aggressive, I think is the term that they use. And
Yeah.
then it's like, oh, what? She's not saying that I raped her. And they're like, yes, that's exactly what she's saying. You raped her. You didn't sexually touch her. You stuck your dick in her and you didn't have your
Yeah.
consent, right? Um,
Hmm.
and then it's like, oh shit, what a fucking serious charge. Like maybe this guy who we're watching down the driveway, sorry, drive down the highway, didn't do this because he seems lovable. He seems like a polite person, and we've, as citizens of the world who pay attention to movies and this industry, we've seen this happen, right? Like we've seen Kevin Spacey very much recently kind of come out of court and being like, oh, my life has been ruined from all this, whatever. Like you and I know the how serious these accusations are, right? And sometimes they're full of
Right.
shit. Sometimes they're not really they've got no standing to make these accusations, but most of the time, unfortunately, they're real, right? As it was
Right.
with Harvey
Majority.
Weinstein,
Yeah.
right? And then it's like, oh, okay, hold on, like let's reassess this. And then as we're kind of
Right.
like getting to know Justin Long's character, the way he answers the phone, what up, faggot? It's like, fuck, man, like this guy, I don't
Hmm.
know, like, okay, because look, when I was in ninth grade, I said that to my friends. They said it to me.
Oh God.
Like
Yes. All the time.
it's not. It's just one of those things that you do as guys when you're
Or
growing
that
up.
that's fucking gay. Like, oh my
Yes,
God, all the
yes.
fucking time.
Obviously, you hold your tongue now, and especially in public. But like, it was just one of those things, and you can like write it off as being guys, right? But then you also have him blatantly kind of like calling it out in the club when he's like, oh, she took some convincing. And it's like, whoa, hold on.
Right.
All right. She took some
Yeah.
convincing. Like, come on, dude.
Well, and the thing is, like this is a I would say how long Justin Long's probably in his late 40s, early 50s now, and that I'm sure he's playing a character around that age, maybe a little bit younger, but it's like to still be using that after that. It's like, dude, even I grew out of saying that. Like, I don't say, faggot or that's gay or blah, blah. Like, I was like, yeah, that's not what I mean. Like, and it's not the right thing to say. And, it's like, and for almost 40, 50 year old, 40, almost 50-year-old man to not grow past that is like, I guess it's not surprising. I'm set in my ways. Like, I just, I'm too old now. It's like, yeah, but still, like, come on, dude. But one of the interesting things is the guy in the club who's talking to him and the guy on the phone who's like, yeah, I just think you need to calm down, AJ. That's Cregger.
Yeah.
That's Zach Cregger on
Yeah.
both
Yeah.
fronts. And which I again, it's hard to explain unless you've been watching Whitest Kids since it first came out. Like I haven't seen every single thing they've ever done, but I've seen hours and hours of their sketches, and to see the guy who's like carrying around a gallon of PCP is in one of their sketches, and he's like, well, yeah, I murdered my wife, sold my kids, and it's like this insane, like to just be like, that's the guy who wrote and directed this. Like it still blows my mind. And what's
Well,
super nice, like the
it's a little
Whitest
bit
Kid
like Spike Jones, being like part of the Jackass
right,
crew and directing her, right?
yeah,
Being John Malkovich.
super. And the nice thing is like the Whitest Kids fan base is like really supportive of this and blah, blah. I'm like, oh, that's awesome,
That's
man.
cool, man.
But basically once he gets here, we kind of realize that, hey, or once we actually, let me backtrack a little bit, because when he first heads out, he's like, wait, am I going to be arrested? And he's like, yeah, it's a very distinct possibility. And like, I think that a scene, we would be remiss to not, I don't know, I hesitated even bringing it up, but the Danny Masterson trial, the Danny Masterson, I think, has been served to like 30 years to life. Like I don't know if he's already been, I know he's been convicted. I just don't know if he's been sentenced already, but I think that's maybe what he was looking at. If not, that's his sentence. But I mean, rightfully so. Just to be 1,000% honest, the Church of Scientology didn't really help anything either. They're pretty responsible in a lot of, ultimately he's responsible for his own actions, but they fucking just, I have problems with that with that organization.
Sentencing is on
But
the 7th of September, so next month.
so at least 30 years is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, so Masterson faces 30 years to life in prison. Hearing was set for August 4th, and sentencing on September 7th, 2023. I don't know too much about this, actually.
Man, it is fucking nuts. I've very little I've paid attention to it, but I know it's pretty crazy. And the Church of Scientology has a massive amount to like do with it. It's disgusting. But
Not
tell you what
surprised,
they
to be
don't have to
honest.
do with it is fucking Justin Long. Is that a Prius? What are you doing, buddy? Times aren't that hard. No, I'm just kidding. I kind of like Priuses. Um, I don't even know if it's really a Prius, to be honest. I'm so bad with cars, but he, again says, hey, there's a very real possibility that you could be arrested. What I'd love is if when Justin Long, he gets the keys and he goes to the house, he walks in the house and he goes, hello. And a man walks out from around the corner. He goes, why don't you just have a seat there? And he's like, okay. And he's like, I'm reading some of the things that you said to this girl, and they're despicable. And he's like, I'm sorry, who are you? He's like, I'm Chris Hansen with Dateline NBC.
I've just got done interviewing Frank downstairs.
Yeah. It's so hard because Chris Hansen got to chatting with a 12-year-old girl.
Right.
He's got this very, very
affliction,
sing-songy kind of way of talking.
It's so
that would be
addicting,
surreal.
actually.
I would die.
It
is. It's almost like pretentious the way that he talks, but it's like it's also a little hypnotic. I'm like, I kind of like it.
Yeah, I like it too. I was watching this with my dad last night because he'd never seen it, and he was about to go to bed, like because we just watched the football last night, and he's like, and I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna stay up and I'm gonna watch this movie for the podcast, and he's like, what is it? And I'm like, oh, it's called Barbarian. It's a horror movie, and he's like, all right, cool, I'll stay. So we watched it together. And like at this point, when he walks in, he's like, because Long is, sorry, I don't want to say Long. AJ's kind of like clocking all these like weird things in the house. He's like, oh, why is the chair propped up against the door? Why are their bags like still here? And my dad's like, does he not know that this house is being used for like Airbnb? Like, what's going on? Because like I also had that thought in the cinema. Like I was also
I was a little confused
because but he does go and pick up the keys from like the agency, right? Like the spare set of keys. So he does know because like he gets on the horn with them and is like, hey, when was the last time this was rented out? And they were like, well, I mean, there's no maid service, and the last time it was rented out was 4 weeks ago, right? Which is Tess and Keith.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and just the kind of everything is going on, and there's these people trapped downstairs, and there's this horror story that's unfolding. There's this guy walking in the door going, "Wow, my consequences in career." It's like it's this great like. I don't know, this unbelievable like comedic relief, as fucked up as it is. Like this part of this movie is like such a palate cleanser, like to me. And there's parts of it that are just downright, like because it's Justin Long, he does kind of, he has this natural kind of like comedic background and kind of persona, but like it's this weird like palate cleanser of seeing just this like total douche canoe. At first you're watching this guy and you're like, man, what the fuck is going on with this guy? And then it subtly gets worse, like as he's talking to Cregger in the bar, and it's this really harsh red light, and it starts panning in on his face, and then you realize, oh, this guy's a fucking monster.
Right.
Like this guy's this guy is the true predator. I
really love oh no, go on. No, you finish your thought. Yeah.
I was just gonna say, and his first thought with everything is like, "What about me?" Versus Tess is sitting there going, "We have to go back for him," and it's like, "Fuck that, man."
Yeah, he's very introverted. He's very, very much thinking about himself. I mean, which is obviously kind of like comes to pass when we're at the top of the water tower or whatever it is there at the end. But like, I love the way this movie explores, the ripple effects of abuse. Right? I mean. Frank, as we'll find out later, he's kidnapping these women, having his way with them, and kind of like creating this cancer in this house, which is rippling out to the neighborhood because we've seen the
Mm-hmm.
effect that this has on the neighborhood. You know, everyone's moving out, and like the dilapidated houses, they're all abandoned. No one's looking after them, and no one's wanting to take, no one's wanting to have to buy them because of what I assume is very well publicized kidnappings, right? Like they're in the newspapers and they're on the news, whatever. But then also here's Justin Long, who we're seeing, sorry, his AJ, and we're also seeing the ripple effects of his abuse, which is now he has to sell his properties, right? Like now he has to go out and sell his properties, which has um obviously the effects that we're about to see, right? Fucking wild.
Right.
Like he and Frank are cut from the same cloth, right? Like their wrongdoing is not on the same level for sure, but they are like when they're in the same room together later, it's like, oh, this is a predator seeing a predator, like, you know.
Right. Right. Yeah. And I think that there's, whereas AJ is, not that it really makes a difference, but it's like one is physically violent,
Definitely,
and the other one definitely less like on that spectrum.
And one is
But
more, one is I think
he
Frank.
relishes in it.
Yes, absolutely. He's more comfortable with himself doing it, you know. Whereas the other
Mm-hmm.
one hasn't really recognized or admitted to the fact
Right.
that he has done it. And
Well, and the thing is, if this is probably not the first time either,
that's what I'm saying.
that
Yeah,
this has happened,
right, exactly. But he's unable to self recognize the fact that he has done it, which is wild.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And it's, there's parts where his character, I was like, wow, that's surprisingly insightful, like the stuff that he's saying. And then by the end, I'm like, nah, never mind. But,
the heel turns.
yeah, absolutely. We see him, going out and having, drinks, basically admitting, to the crime. And we get them the morning after. The woman he leaves the voicemail for is, the accuser, Megan, the victim. She is Zach Cregger's wife.
Oh, awesome. Cool.
She's in a bunch of stuff. She's in the Innkeeper. She's in, I think it's Last House on the Left. No, The Hills Have Eyes or something. She's in the remake of it.
Oh, cool. I just revisited that the other day. Actually, it's still pretty good. I think I like that remake.
Yeah, that I don't have the stomach for Hills Have Eyes or Last House on the Left, either remake, original. There's something about those where
The
I'm like,
sexual
man,
assault.
that just gets, that
it's
just gets real.
Like, it's a lot.
Same reason I don't really get into like Deliverance, and I'm like, nah, I'm good.
Mm.
But the we basically get him kind of investigating, finally going through all their shit, and it's just, this guy has no regard for anybody, for picks up her laptop and just fucking chucks it across the room.
My God,
just no regard, man.
I wonder as well if there's like some kind of like meta commentary, because he was known as the Apple guy, so I'm just like, he just
man,
and like,
that would be fucking hilarious.
But yeah, like it ties into exactly what you're saying. This guy has no respect for other people, right? I mean, if we just use like this analogy of like, like this is Kate's property, this is Tessa's property, and in effect, it is them, right? Like he's just got like no regard for them. Like he only cares about himself.
Right. And I understand, like, from a certain point of view, he's like, you're in my fucking house. Like, what? There shouldn't be anybody in here. Why is your shit all in here? But it's like, yeah, but you can't just be going through people's shit like that.
It could have been an honest mistake, right? I mean, like they could come back from
right.
For all you know that these two are a couple, and they've gone for a walk. They're going to come back because of some scheduling issue, and you've destroyed their laptop. Their fucking clothes are all everywhere. You haven't packed that shit
right.
up. Like, yeah, I don't know.
Right. We get him threatening a set of stairs, which is great. I have a gun. I'm gonna come down here and start blasting in about 30 seconds.
He's fucking Danny DeVito. So anyway, I started blasting.
Yeah, so I started blasting. And again, the Raimi, the Dutch angle on the stairs, and it's fucking slick. It's fucking great. He almost like that. I think Justin Long is one of about 5 actors. I think I've said this before on the podcast that like if I could just clone their career, and it's like he's done rom coms, horror movies,
Action,
comedies,
live
like
free, die hard. Yeah.
yeah, like he's done, he was the Apple guy, he was the Mac guy, and he's kind of like just this renaissance man of playing these idiocracy. It's like
Oh
he
my
plays
god.
all these great fucking characters, and but his career is like it's been going 20 years strong. He's like a household name,
Jeepers
I would
Creepers. Yeah.
say. I think, yeah, Jeepers Creepers,
Galaxy
like he's in.
Quest.
Oh yeah,
That
I
was his
forget
first
what is that,
role.
99.
Yeah.
Jesus, man, he's been acting for like, I mean, on camera for almost 25 years, and still is going. He looks so good, man, for someone who's probably in. How old is he? Early 50s.
He's just one of those guys that doesn't age. He's 45.
Wow,
He's
45,
got a great
and still has
podcast.
been. I mean, I need to check him out. I love Justin
Oh,
Long, but
he's married to Kate
anyways,
Bosworth, previous Lois Lane from Superman Returns.
I saw that. I saw they got married. I was like, good for you, dude.
Oh, they got married this year. That's wild.
Yeah, I think he's one of the few like celebrities I follow on social media.
Oh, that's
And
cool.
I was like,
Seems like a
I
nice guy.
definitely like him a lot. Yeah, 100%. Um, he eventually finds the fucking the underground tunnel, and I enjoy, again, like now that we kind of know what's going on, and you're like, oh, we're gonna go through this whole thing of him going what the fuck and walking down there, and he immediately is like, can underground footage be counted towards blah blah blah, and he's like googling this shit, and I
The
was like,
hard
oh my
cut is
god.
so fucking good, man. Like the hard cut is brilliant. Again, just the editing of it is brilliant. And like he's talking to himself, right? Which he kind of needs to do because he's by himself, so he's gonna kind of like convey it to the audience. But like him just being like, "Oh, only usually," like he's like, "Oh,
Yeah,
hold on,
okay,
we
all
we
right,
might be on here." Him like busting
right.
out the fucking tape measure, dude, and like he's literally like every nook and cranny, dude. He's measuring out. It's so good.
Yeah, just absolutely, again, like the commentary on just the kind of fuck everybody else, I'm in this for me, like kind of thing. I think is just louder than unbelievably loud in this movie, and the
Him,
fact that it's like him in the room with the camera and the bed, and he's sitting on like
oh,
the edge of the bed. I'm like, dude, you are a fucking idiot, man.
I'm I'm listening to currently, and I know Patrick, if you're listening to this, you don't like him, but I'm listening to Joe Rogan again. But like that, he had these two like paranormal investigators
Just
on.
had to throw that in.
Yeah, I know. I had to throw it in. You know what? Fuck him, man. I like him. Yeah, I think he's well read.
I like his guests. I like his conversations,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I don't think I would like Rogan as like as a friend. I'd be like, man, you're kind of annoying,
I
but
don't
like you have cool
I don't listen to
content.
him. I mean, look, I'm not going to take his advice on anything, but I like listening to him talk
Right.
about shit sometimes. And he had these like two.
His podcast is better than a stand up.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree. He had these two investigators on, paranormal investigators, Sam and Colby, and I'm listening to that episode now, and they're talking about like sometimes how like objects might be like imbued with like spiritual, like kind of like energy. Can you imagine the spiritual energy of that mattress? Like Jesus.
Man, that would be fucking. Oh, dude, yeah, the kind of like kinetic, like, I don't know, rage and
Man,
sorrow that gets like sewn into that thing. It's like,
it's
oh
crazy.
my
I'm
god.
not sure if I've talked about this before, but when I went to New York and I got off the subway and I took the steps and I entered, like, I went up to the surface of the old tower, the Twin Tower site, sorry.
Hmm.
You could feel like the energy, man. Like you could feel that 3,000 plus people died here, and you could just be like,
Hmm.
man, the air is thick, the air is heavy, you know.
Hmm.
And I don't know if it's like placebo because I'm coming in with like known information, like I know that like that something wild has happened here, but like it's crazy. I'm like I'm sure that's what the feeling of like down here must feel like, man. Like that you just know that some fucking insane shit has happened here, you know?
Right. How many people have run these corridors like screaming
Right.
just to get fucking just to get killed or assaulted?
I was waiting for like a
Um,
fingernail to be embedded in a wall or something like that, man. Like,
right. Yeah, scratch marks or something. Well, eventually after we're done fucking checking out the square footage of the house, we find I'm going to call it like the nursing room,
right.
basically the nursery. So I was like, oh Jesus Christ. And again, the angles, the super close up on him with the knife and the flashlight, and then the point of view of his
The
shot
first
is
person
great.
shot. Yeah.
um I don't mind I don't know. I could go for it, but I also am getting a little tired of seeing the flashing light in a dark room effect. The thing where it's like the
Yeah.
light is going on and going off, and we're
I
seeing.
kind of like it. I'm
Um,
sorry. I know there's
I didn't say I didn't like it.
yeah.
I didn't say I didn't like. I like it, but at the same time, I was like, it is great for like revving up the tension and stuff, and it
Yeah.
definitely
Yeah.
is effective. But I'm like, man, I have seen this in like 4 or 5 fucking movies
Right,
now.
right, right. They do it briefly here. They did it in, what, the Batman, right? When he's like kind of like fighting with the guys with the guns, and it's like a dark room,
Hmm.
and you just like see it flashing.
I think they do it in Dark Knight Rises too.
Yeah,
That guy shooting him in the
in
tunnel
the
and he like
tunnels.
zigzags.
Um, One of my favorite uses of it is in this old. It's a remake of a Japanese horror movie called Shutter.
Hmm.
Shutter. Not a good movie, but I think they're like doing like a photography course or something, and they're in like a studio, and obviously like with the flashing, like But yeah, it's cool. Okay, I got a question for you. What
Yeah.
what kind of aromas are we working with here? Like, what's the scent like down here, man? Like, cause
Oh, dude. I
she's gonna be she's gonna be a little pungent.
I feel like it would like the smell down there would be so bad that it would like overload. Like it just wouldn't smell like anything anymore. Like
Oh
it would be
yeah,
so
gotcha.
so overloaded, your nose would just like shut the fuck down.
Right.
But because in the house that I grew up in, I think the house now is about 120 years old, and in the basement there was like stone, like there was stone and stuff down there, and like the dank, dark, like mildewy kind of smell of just the dust and the time and rock and dirt is like it's a very specific kind of smell. But it's like, and then you add decades of like just the worst atrocities a human being can inflict on another one, and it's like I could only imagine. Just like there's no, you got to burn this place with fire. There's no, there's no purifying this shit. um but I think the shot of the tape like getting sucked back into the darkness is probably one of the better shots of the movie, because it's like it tells you that there's definitely something like the tape should come back to the canister, not the other way
Mm-hmm.
around. And it shouldn't be like that. I love that shot. And AJ ends up falling into his own trap. I thought for sure he was going to fall and the knife was gonna stab him or something. I thought for sure he was going to end up getting killed somehow. But no, he just falls in a little one of Mother's pits, and we get our flashback scene. And we also get Tess as well. I thought that was great. A little jump
So good.
scare, but it was great. I wonder, like watching this, I'm like, I really want to know how this movie was made, because it's like the exteriors are shot in Michigan, the interiors are shot in Bulgaria, but it's like, where was this filmed? Because it's like the house looks exactly the same, but it's like this neighborhood is like, this has got to be like a backlot or something, right? I just don't know where else this would be.
Yeah, it has to be,
But
man.
there's like a whole fucking town, there's like a whole fucking town of shit going on. And it's like, well, this is only a $4 million budget. Like they can't go too crazy.
Right.
And they do have stars. Like they have Skarsgård and Justin Long. They do have some names in there.
Yeah, for the money. And
Um,
I'm sure like she didn't cost like the makeup and stuff, like that would have cost a pretty penny. And Yeah, I don't know. I don't know
Yeah.
what this is, man. Like, because
These fucking tunnels and shit. I mean, maybe that $4 million really went far in Bulgaria.
because also it's period too, right? Like when we flash back here, we need to get accurate cars, we need to get accurate clothing, like all the set dressing must be period appropriate. So it's yeah, like when you make a period film or a period TV show or something, like it's your prices are sorry, your budget's gonna get jacked up.
Right.
But man, I love this kind of like 5 minute stretch of just like context, you know?
Mm-hmm. Dude.
It is.
Whew.
It's a lot.
Like the
Richard Brake is incredible in this sequence, man. Like just absolutely incredible.
Speaking of Nolan, I wish seeing him as Jonathan Crane as the Scarecrow would have been a crazy turn.
Oh yes.
Like as a much older Scarecrow, like holy shit.
It's the it's the control, like the level of control he has, or like the level of comfortability that he's kind of like doing this as. Oh, sorry. Like, okay, let's talk about. There's two kind of like things. Actually, there's three things here that I want to talk about that we can kind of break it down by. There's him kind of like walking into the grocery store, which is, and he kind of like purchases the baby items, and then there's
mm-hmm.
the stalking of the woman, right? And then the last thing I kind of like wanted to touch on was him interacting with the neighbor. I think that's the three. Like even this has kind of like a 3 act structure in it too, which is wild.
Yeah, it's like a short film.
So let's talk about like the baby items, because you're also wondering like, what is this? Like we just saw him like step out of the house, and the house that we know is going to be the house. So
right.
He makes his way to the store, and he's kind of like, shopping along, and he seems very chill, like Joe Chill. No, he seems
Yeah.
he seems very chill. He seems very relaxed, as he's kind of like going up and down the aisles, and yeah, like this is like like you get like little clues, like no, we're doing a home birth. I'm delivering the baby, and it's like, oh, okay, what are we working with here?
Right. Well, and almost in a weird way, probably just because we watched Goodfellas, but when he's like, Paulie didn't move for anybody, and like that's the way I feel. Like this guy he's like, I don't move at any pace but my own, and I think it also shows you it's like the facets of all the different predators of like, even though AJ, he's a predator as well to a much, much lesser extent probably than Frank, but still a predator. But it's like, and he's out there and he's, a lot of people know who he is, but with Frank, he blends in so well with everybody else, but he's this awful fucking monster, when it really comes down to it. I like the whole idea of him hiding in plain sight. I think that's very interesting. I do want to hit you with one music cue real quick. Let me get this pulled up.
I know exactly what it's going to be.
Shut up. Hold on real quick.
I'm sorry to bother.
No bother.
We've got some outages in the neighborhood, and I'm just checking to make sure everything's up to par.
God, I don't. I mean, and Cregger's already talked about. Yeah, talked about the influence of like John Carpenter and stuff, and I definitely feel like you can hear that that kind of score not only with Carpenter stuff, but with what it was Ennio Morricone who was on the thing. Yeah. He did what did you Hateful Eight or
Hateful Eight, yeah.
Django?
Well, he did Hateful Eight, and he's also he's known for the Dollars trilogy, which is like
yes,
the Clint Eastwood trilogy.
For a few dollars more.
Right.
Yeah,
Good, Bad, and the Ugly.
Yeah, the whole thing that by the time we see, I guess one of the things I thought was like, how long has Frank been doing this? A, and then B, it's like if he's been doing this for a while, because this just doesn't seem like something that he just out of the blue, like maybe I could see it if they're like, oh, he's been planning this for like months and he's finally figured out like how he wants to do it. But this is something where it's like, there's so many tapes, there's so many of them that it's like, this is definitely something that I feel like, I don't know, that this is probably a third of the way into like what Frank has been doing, because I bet you, I mean, this guy probably went from, this is the 80s, this probably goes on for another, what, 15, 20 years, if not more. Like, it probably goes on for even longer, and there's so many tapes, that have been made, that it's like, holy shit.
Absolutely.
And and I think one thing is also, is like, the fucked up thing about it is like, his victims don't even get reported because they don't even exist.
Right.
They never leave this isolation. Like, he's molesting and raping his own children, and they themselves products of assault. And
the ones that he doesn't kidnap, right? Yeah, absolutely. Because like,
right,
there are the women who he kidnaps. Like, let's say, for example, this poor woman who he pretends to be a DWP official, and he walks in and
mm-hmm.
he kind of like does this the slick um window, unlatches the window, and then he leaves, right, so he can come back in later and kidnap her. Those women were reported, and I think that is essential to the story of this, because that's why this suburb became the way it is, because that's why this neighbor is, he says the neighborhood's gone to shit, right? And
Yeah.
initially I thought that was financially. I thought that they were hitting some kind of like financial woes, like like Detroit was kind of like going down the shitter in terms of like industry, but I don't think that's the case, really. I think it's these widespread sort of
I don't know.
women gone missing.
I think that, I feel like that might be part of it, but I think that, I don't know. I do think it's the financial thing, because that's when, again, in the 80s, like Detroit, as Michigan, but Detroit specifically was really starting to suffer. And I think that what he's talking about is primarily a financial thing, but also at the same time, the neighborhood's really gone to shit, and it's kind of like, yeah, more than like, you have no, like, the collapse of this community is kind of analogous to like the fact that Frank is here,
right?
Like, one of the biggest problems. And it doesn't help that, you're next door, and this is a woman who probably lives in town or something, and they're going missing, and as meticulous as Frank is, he doesn't strike me as someone who picks people off from the neighborhood, the local neighborhood. He's probably going out of county, out of city, and even though this is even though it's a somewhat big city, still his neighbor knows them. They're close, and I feel like it would be hard to kind of pick people off from your own within a mile or two of you. I feel like he's kind of expanding his search and finding people that it's like, there's no way that he knows who this person is, and that's the people who never get caught. If I just pick some guy out in traffic and followed him home and murdered him, there's a good chance I might get away with it, because they have I have no record, there's no reason, I have no motive. Like, those are the people who get away with that shit, or the people who just do it at random. It's scary too. It's like, a lot of solving murder cases is, it's the husband, or we have DNA of somebody on file, and it's like, the people who just do it randomly are the ones who get away with it. It's fucking scary,
right,
man.
When it's when you're unable to establish a pattern, yeah, for sure.
Right.
I do agree with that, and I think you're making some solid points. I feel like he's snatched at least a few people from his radius, from like nearby his house,
Mm-hmm.
only because I think what Craig is saying here with like the sexual assault aspect is that this doesn't just affect you; this affects the people around you. This affects
right.
like your immediate kind of like like, I don't know, like the people your immediate world, like the people in your sphere.
It poisons the water hole,
right.
It just breeds
if I want
fear in this community.
If I want to put it in Stranger Things terms, in the Upside Down, this house would be the black hole, and the tendrils would be reaching out to the fucking, like, be infecting the goddamn neighborhood,
Right.
Yeah.
I definitely agree with that. I think that there's definitely a a hate that's spreading, and again, the ominous, as he comes inside and goes down, you just hear the screaming from the door, being opened. It's just, whew, man, that is rough. It is heavy. This is a heavy fucking movie. But we cut back to finally present day. We're back with AJ and Tess, and it's feeding time. This was like, God, dude, like. I thought this really, I was like, okay, this is pretty fucked up. And like, there's something about the oral, forcing someone to do an oral thing is very, again, has a lot of connotations to it. But, just the forced feeding is like fucking hell, man.
I had to fast forward through this yesterday for my dad, man. I'm just like, I know he's going to squirm. So I'm just going to hit 15 seconds ahead. Real quick, just quick side tangent. In your version of the movie, the victim who accuses AJ, her name is Megan, right?
Yeah.
Okay, because I just checked, and it is also Megan in my one. But Wikipedia has Melissa as the victim's name, and Melissa is voiced by Kate Bosworth. And I just looked it up, and there's other articles that are like Kate Bosworth as Melissa, the woman accusing AJ Gilbride. And I'm just like, what? What is happening here?
Yeah, I don't think that's right.
Fuck?
Melissa's the one when he's on the phone. He's like, what the fuck does that mean, Melissa? Like it's clear. Jesus Christ. Weird. The people who write articles. Dude.
But yeah, Kate Bosworth also in this movie.
Oof, yeah. Oh, that's awesome. I'm glad both their kind of like respective spouses like make cameos, but yeah, this was crazy, and I didn't think it could get any worse until she drags him to like the feeding room, and I was like, oh God in heaven, Jesus, Mother and Joseph on fuck God, give me a break, again, man.
I say again, what do you reckon that nursery smells like?
Oh Jesus. Forced lactation, like, ugh, good Lord. Well, and the sad thing is that it's like, it's just, how like people, like when you have someone who's been repeatedly abused, like I think we talked about this on You Were Never Really Here, the Joaquin Phoenix movie, and he saves children episode. From child trafficking. Do what?
Wasn't that a bonus episode?
Oh, I thought you said greatest episode. I was like,
that was pretty good.
No, yeah, I think it's on our bonus feed. But there's a point where he goes and he saves a girl, and as soon as he walks in the room, she is like, I think she tries to like take her clothes off or something, and he's like, no. Like, and it's the thing of like when you've been abused that much, there's just that cycle of habits and patterns and what you're being forced to do. And like, I think this is just a victim just playing out those habits, and unfortunately in violent ways and hurting people. And but a lot of this stuff is the mother character is like, it's really hard to look at her in any kind of like super villainous way, because it's like you're who knows what your mental capacity is. You've been down here for fucking 40 years.
You've got no education.
You're the product of just constant inbreeding and sexual assault. And it's like, if this were a real person, they'd be like, well, I mean, I don't really know how to judge that. It's like this person is not like a normal functioning member of society, and it's hard to really look at her with any other thing but like kind of pity by the end of this movie. And I think that she's just from being forced to bear probably several children and having to rear them up, she's just playing out like habits. And I think that one part of it is like, what does the mother want? It's like she wants these babies. Why? Because she can't have them anymore. Like he can't produce, they can't, whatever. And it's like, that's why she's taking this people, because without the kids, there's nothing. She's been used as like a breeding cow, basically. And it's like she's just running through these patterns again. And I'm like, that is so fucking sad. It's like, can't help but feel just sorry for that character by the end. And I think Cregger and company do a really, really good job of that. Of when she puts the gun to her head at the end, you're just like, good God, man, let this. I kind of like the abrupt ending because it's like, let this be done.
Right.
Like, let this be over. Jesus Christ.
I also want to raise, just as an audience member, and obviously as someone who obviously detests sexual assault and abuses, just the gratification of Justin Long being an abuser, and you have this victim who is putting him in this situation, like breastfeeding him. I'm just like, this is so gratifying to watch, you know?
Basically, yeah, getting something shoved in your mouth, basically.
Right.
But yeah, as that's going on, Tess, promptly uses this to get the fuck out of there, but not before alerting, Mother to chasing her, and her getting pulled through the window and seeing the thing. It was a little jarring seeing her. Yeah, it was a little jarring seeing her come out into the light. I was like, oh, I didn't expect that. I didn't expect her to actually stick her head out, because I was like, okay, surely when she comes to the surface, this guy's going to be like, oh shit, we got to get the cops. We got to get everybody, like, blah, blah. And he's like, nah, yeah, she does that. And I'm like, what? I don't understand. Yeah, that definitely like threw me off a little bit. But I think that the, kind of seeing her in broad daylight really kind of humanized her for me a lot too. I'm like, this is not some kind of monster who only comes out in the dark. Like,
this is a person who's stuck down here.
Right. This person is obviously perpetrating these horrible acts and like smashing, Keith's head against the wall, which is crazy. Where I was like, why did you kill him, but not the other ones? I was kind of curious about that. Like, why did she smash his head into the wall? I kind of wondered, but she's a murderer. She's killed people probably more than once. But at the same time, it's like, you can't really, this person has the idea of what this person's reality is. It's like, Jesus Christ, it'd be brain breaking to try to like figure that out. Like, you can't even get in their mindset. Basically she is able to escape. And Andre tells her, basically, don't be fucking back by here by dark. She will come for you. You need to get the fuck out of here. I'm chilling over here at the water tower if you want to come kick it sometime.
If you want to just knock birds. That was really interesting to me, is the fact that Andre knows that she leaves the house at night. She goes exploring. That is terrifying. That's really terrifying. Hey, Andre, why are you chilling here, man? What's
Yeah.
What's
get the fuck
what's
out.
Your story? Why are you
Right.
What are you, like Batman? Like telling people to stay the fuck out? Like what? I mean, you very calmly approached her earlier.
Well, yeah, and part of me also goes like, it's not like you own property here or something, right? You can just leave. Like, you don't have to stay in this neighborhood. Like, like, what are you, like a guardian, like a watchtower? Like, what's going on?
He blew his entire life savings on just that like patch of dirt that he chills on, and yeah,
he's like, I spent it all on this coat. But the
nice coat.
It is a nice coat. Basically, she was told, get the fuck out of Dodge. Don't be here. She will come after you. She's got she's got a taste for you. She wants you, especially now that she's been compliant in this. Like, now she knows like what to do and stuff.
She cooperates.
She's been there for weeks. Yeah. She does end up getting to a gas station, calling the police. Justin Long finds Frank. That's again another great jump scare. The palm tree on the wall is so disturbing. Like the drawing of like the palm. There's a like where the TV is behind the wall, and it's just like, that's your window to the world down here. Just, I mean, how many feet do you think we are underground? Hundreds of feet underground, and it's like, this is where you've chosen to like spend your last days. It's like, holy shit.
Well, firstly, like the mother like backing off, right? So like we know there's some wild shit behind this door, but also the
Yeah.
system of bells along the wall. So you can take from that the like mother has been taking care of him and like helping him and nursing him like whenever like he calls her or something, and it's just like this is like what the fuck happened down here.
Right. Absolutely. Like this is again some of the just most horrible atrocities. But
I also didn't
as he
think my
meets,
my dad grasped how fucked up this movie is. By the way, he's just like, oh yeah, that was good. Like, it's just like,
what? You not feel like you need a shower after this?
dude, I feel so
Um,
dirty watching this movie because there's
but
some titties.
well, yeah, that it's like just the constant just filth downstairs. But Tess goes to get the cops. The cops don't believe her. Again, feel like this says a lot about victim culture
Yes,
and trying unless you have hardcore evidence of something, it's very hard for because it does become a game of he said she said a lot
right.
of the times, and you have to get witnesses and DNA and blah blah blah. And
Well, it's not
um
particularly subtle, right? Like what Craig is trying to do here, but it is. I think it is very effective because this is the system, right? I mean, this is the system failing a victim, or failing to hear a victim. And look, I think these cops are trying to be as helpful as they possibly can, and the main one that she kind of like talks to really tries to hear her out, but she's not making a very good case for herself, or she physically can't make a good case for herself because she's just unable to. But there was one interaction that really kind of like struck me in this viewing was when she approaches the car and she kind of like leans on the car a little bit, and the guy's like, "Get your hands off the car," and it's like, "Oh, okay, hold on,
yeah,
like are you just saying get your hands off the car for my own safety? Or are you saying get your hands off the car because you're a filthy meth addict? Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's already
right.
some level of judgment that's entering this conversation before she started saying
Again,
words.
like what you said earlier on, is kind of judging people by this.
Yeah.
Like you've painted this person with this brush, like right away.
Yeah. I just thought that was a
Um,
really interesting interaction before the interactions begun, before she started to, sort of like make her case.
right. Yeah. I uh, I definitely think that there's a lot going on with, again, getting people to believe that this crime has taken place, and then just kind of like basically fucking off, and being like, well, yeah, I can't really do shit. And it's like, and I do understand, like, to an extent, from their point of view. I don't think that they're trying every single thing. I think that they're trying what they can do with the time that they have. Like, I think you're lucky you even got a fucking unit out
Right.
here,
Yeah.
to be 1,000% honest. Like, this is like the Deadlands. Like people don't live out here. That's why it's an Airbnb, because people don't fucking stay here for that long. Um, but I think once they finally leave, and she realizes, fuck, again, I think it's interesting because Justin Long is singing that song on the radio about the failing institutions, the school, the church, like
Hmm.
the government. And it's like, and that, yeah, the institutions absolutely fail you in all of this. The people that are supposed to kind of
Right.
responsible for everything are
Yeah.
just total
Again,
failures.
Craig is kind of like pointing the finger at a possible reason as to why sexual assault victims are often overlooked, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And as we get this scene with AJ and Frank, and we're slowly starting to piece together, or AJ is starting to piece together some of the names of these tapes. By the way,
Oof.
won't stop crying, suicide, biter, like some. It's like the descriptive of them is
Puka is
like,
the one that got me, man. Jesus.
yeah, puker, gas station redhead, and it's like I do appreciate the fact that it's like we don't need to really see any of the tapes. There's like a half second where you can hear
Yeah.
it, and then Justin Long just shuts it
It's
off,
like
and
you
it's
just
like
hear some
let
like
the
whipping, right?
something like that, yeah. And but it's like the theater of the mind is what really like we'll let
Yeah.
we'll let you do the damage to yourself, like kind of
My
thing.
God, man, some of these are
Um,
kind of really fucked up. There's like
oh
cab
yeah,
driver, dude. The ones that really kind of stick out to me are the named ones. There's one. There's
uh huh.
one. There's one. Stephanie. I'm like, I'm gonna give Steph a call. Hey, hey, doing Steph?
Yeah, you all right?
You're right.
You okay?
Something you need to tell me. Ruth, Chelsea, dude. The named ones are the ones that kind of get me because like this guy must have. These are the ones that I think are the ones that he got to know, like or like a neighbors or
Yeah,
something like that. Bad nosebleeder. Oh, redhead homeless, no teeth.
yeah, yeah. There's a bunch of them in there that are fucking. As you start reading them, you're like, pregnant is one. It's like, oh Jesus Christ, man!
Irish
Like,
accent. Hannah, Lacey, dude. This one, suicide. What the fuck?
yeah, that's the last one that I was like, oh Jesus! Like, no wonder they put that on the top shelf at the very end. It's like barely in focus for a second. Well, and the thing of like, that as soon as it basically as soon as just along it's like, hey, don't worry, we're gonna get cops here, everybody's gonna find out. He's like, can you bring me my shooting gun,
Right.
please? Like
Right.
he immediately wants the fucking gun. And I'll be honest, like when he got the gun out, I was like, oh, he's gonna kill Justin Long, and I did not expect him to blow his brains out. I was like, oh yeah, that does kind of make sense. Like just logically, it's like this guy's fucking 90 years old, and he just basically got busted.
This guy,
But the thing that
man,
fucking
I just unfortunately, yeah. Like now, I can all. The only thing I can really think about is David Parker Ray because this is like that analogy is perfect for what this guy probably made them go through, man. Like David Parker Ray,
right,
and you and I were talking about this off air a little bit. You can go in and listen to the recorded, sort of like audio that he made his victims listen to before he tortured them. Um,
hmm
and I like it's so fucked up that
it's just so organized.
yes,
Like it's
the
systematic.
thought out,
Like it's like the
yeah,
necessity is the mother of invention, and the fact that this was like you invented this thing out of a necessity for like, yeah, every time they keep we keep running into problems every time we abduct these people and rape them and murder them, and it's like, oh Jesus, God Almighty. And the fact that you have to have a system for that is like, dude, this is not, hey, who's paying for, who's picking up the check this week at at the company lunch. This is how to systematically torture people to death and stuff. Like, holy shit. Um, I tell you what blew my mind is when she goes to leave, and and I was kind of surprised, like, wow, she really is getting in her car to leave, and mother burst through the front fucking door. I was like, oh Jesus God, like, because the fight really has not left the house yet, and like, as Andre told us, like, she's going to come out at night, but I didn't really believe it till I saw it, and I was like, oh wow, she really is like going after her.
right.
It's a great shot of her, whipping around in like the first person like point of view and ramming her into the house. I definitely know. I was like, oh no, there's like 20 minutes left in this movie. She's not dead. I was like, there's no fucking
Of
way.
course.
I was like, there's like 20 minutes to a half hour
It's
left.
at this point that like I started to question.
I'm sorry, 12 minutes.
Right,
I'm
right,
way
right.
off there.
No, that's all right. It's at this point that I like started to question. I'm like, okay, so why is mother coming for Tess so aggressively and so hard? And I'm just like, well, I mean, Tess has been down here for 4 weeks now, and
Mm-hmm.
she is probably the only person who has, like you said, cooperated with mother and gone along with her. And yeah, sure, it's out of like Tessa's own like sort of like safety, and like she's kind of like
Right.
her own self preservation.
Compliant.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but like to mother, this is the only other human interaction that she's had that is not aggressive and not not someone who is like obviously she's afraid, but like openly afraid and openly dissenting, you know, and I'm like, that makes total sense.
No, yeah, I absolutely like there's something that I kind of like about the fact that like I don't know how long did it I'm like how long did it take Tess to figure this out where she was like, "Oh, this is all she wants." Like obviously she's terrified,
Right.
but she's not
Right.
panicking. Like she's not freaking out because she knows how to play the system.
And Tess doesn't have context. Tess doesn't have the knowledge that Mother is the product of over like sexual assault over and over again, right? Like she's got no idea that this is actually a victim.
Right, absolutely. When she again going back for AJ, it just blows my fucking mind. Now that we know
Right,
on
yeah,
a second watch,
yeah.
it's like you fuck him, and he fucking shoots her. Like Lindsay called it. Lindsay goes, "Oh, he's gonna shoot her and kill her," and I was like, I know a little bit about Zach Cregger, and he is kind of cynical, and I could see him doing that. I could definitely see Tess dying and this guy fucking living through it. But yeah, once he shot her, and I was like, "Oh fuck, she's dead." And the movie does a great job, and she does a great job, Georgina, of making you feel like, "Oh, god damn it, she's dead." And the second she's like, and her eyes kind of start moving, I'm like, "Oh, thank fucking Christ, man," because I was like, "Ah, Jesus." But just the shit that this woman, like she's been shot through the fucking side, takes it like a champ, by
Dude,
the way.
right?
Like 2 minutes later, she's like chilling by the fire and just like, "Hey, what's up?" And like just got her hand,
Glad we
on
could
the
finally hang
bullet
out,
wound.
Andre. Yeah, no worries.
Right. But once they finally start escaping and they run to the water tower, and they meet up with Andre, and Andre again gives us the backstory of where Mother has come from. God, do I feel bad for Andre. All he did was like, he's probably one of the only, but I think he pretty much is the only like 100% benevolent kind of male figure in this,
Yeah.
with like, no, he's just being a nice guy. Like he wants again, maybe going about it the wrong way. "Here, come on, let me help let me help you save me." It's like, God, Jesus, get away from me. I think that he's like the only really pretty much good 100% male character in this, and he straight up says, he's like, she only comes out at night. Like he doesn't say, "Oh, she's a monster, she's a freak." Like, he's like, "No, she's been there forever. This is her routine, basically." I
bet when Andre woke up this morning, he didn't know he was going to be beaten to death by his own arm.
Yeah, right. Someone's like, "Don't break an arm jerking yourself off." He's like, "I won't."
That other person's like, "Ooh."
Yeah.
There's a quick moment here as well when AJ's kind of like self-reflecting. He's like, I might be a bad person, or I might be a good person that bad things happen to. And I'm like, that is such a it's such an introverted or selfish way to look at things. Like, like I am a good person. Things just
Self-centered.
bad things just happen to me. I'm like, no, man. You need to self-recognize. You need to take a step back and recognize that maybe you are a bad person. Maybe you did rape someone and take their innocence and absolutely destroyed their life.
Right.
And yeah.
Right. Well, and you think he's making a turn, and it's like, it doesn't make what he did okay, but it makes you like, I don't know. It does bring you like a tiny scrap of like, yeah, you know what? Yeah, that's what should fucking happen. Like at least that. At least there's something in this. But it's like, and a second later, he's like, "Oh no, here you go," and throws her off the fucking ledge.
Fucking coward, man. He's such a coward,
dude. Oh my God, he's fucking like I love Justin Long in this, but I would kind of love to see Carrie Elways from Saw. I don't know. There's something about him. I could just absolutely see him playing this role. He can be a smarmy little dick.
I just watched that Blackberry movie, and he pops up in that, and I'm just like, oh, yeah, like he plays the owner of Palm Pilot. You remember the Palm Pilot kind of thing?
Oh yeah,
and he's fucking great in that movie, man. Like, he's so good.
I would kind of love to see Glenn Howerton as AJ. I feel like he would rip it up, dude.
Like, well, he is AJ.
Like, he basically is AJ. Yeah,
it's always funny because of the
Dennis. Right. but yeah, we're kind of winded down here with this. We get this chase up to the water tower. Um, and AJ just kind of lays it out, she's not going to stop, and says, yeah, I just need you to buy me some time. And because at first I was like, maybe this is some kind of plan that he has. And I'm like, you have no idea that she's like, he knows she's going to go off the water tower for
He's
her, but you have no
gun,
idea.
Dude. Oh my God.
Same way he fumbles the knife and fucking drops it and shit. Like, but as you're watching this, I'm like, oh, maybe he does have some kind of plan. Like he knows that she'll eat the brunt of this fall, but it's like, dude, that's like 2 or 3 stories she fell, like you have no idea. She's already been shot in the fucking side. But yeah, a just death for an unwelcoming character.
A Justin death.
A Justin death. There you go. A Justin long drawn out death.
I'll tell you what though, in the cinema, and it still doesn't sit right with me either. The shot of the mother diving over, and I'm just like, it just looks so goofy, dude. Yeah. I'm just like, I really wish, Zach, that you'd chosen a different way to show that mother jumped for fucking thing, because it just looks a little goofy.
It looks like the Big Lebowski when he's like, la, 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 and he's like flying. He's like flying.
People in the
into
cinema
screen.
laughed, dude. I remember that very perfectly. I'm just like, oh, damn it, man. Like, I know where you're going for here, Zach, but yeah, you have to find another way to do that, man.
Yeah. So Mama takes the dive with Tess. AJ comes down there and promptly gets his eyes fucked out of his head and like just skull. Good God, she cracks him like a fucking cantaloupe,
like a fucking watermelon, man. But this is so good. Like, this is her version of retribution. Like, this is like, okay, like, I've been a victim all my life, and now I've got an abuser in my hand, and let's fucking go.
Right? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, she cracks his head open like a fucking watermelon. And again, just the heartbreak of this. Like, this is eerily reminiscent of like The Fly by the end of it, of Jeff Goldblum putting the shotgun to his head. It's not extreme. It's not the exact same, but the same kind of feeling comes over me of just putting something out of its misery. And I hate to even put it that way, but it's like, again, you can't even begin to like realize the kind of reality that mother lives in and what her mental state is. And it's like, Jesus Christ, man. Like I can only fucking imagine the hell that must be. And yeah, the hard cut, bang, her shooting her in the head, just did not expect that. And I thought the movie was just going to stop right there. And I was like, oh, bullshit. But I like the fact that we actually see her get up and like walk away. And we know she's going to own the fucking Detroit Police Department soon. She's suing the fuck out of them.
Oh yeah, baby. But I just love like as soon as you hear bang, like hard cut to the credits, directed by Zach Cregger, and I'm like, what a perfect way to let it be known that you did this.
Yes, it's a good hard cut. But that's Barbarian. Our protagonist walks off into the sunset.
The song
and,
"Be My
lives
Baby"
to fight another day
by the Ronettes. Perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect.
Yeah. Yes. In more ways than one too, because I feel like Phil Spector had something to do with the run, and he was I think he held people like captive and stuff. Damn. It's a weird, yeah. But yeah, that's it for Barbarian. You want to do final thoughts or comments?
We've got one comment, and it's from our boy. Well, I
Cool.
think we were a bit late putting this one up, so thank you so much, Jose. Man of the hour, Jose. He says, Barbarian took me by surprise because aside from 2 people meeting in an Airbnb, I had no clue where this was going. Bill Skarsgård was charming, and that's a complete 180 from being Pennywise. I know Georgina Campbell from her episode of Black Mirror and as a lead on Krypton, and she was outstanding in this. When the first reveal came, I literally shouted. And talk about a messed up ending. The biggest surprise was that this was written and directed by Zach Cregger, who I remembered from the comedy show Wrecked. Talk about knocking out of the park on your first go. I can't wait to see what he's got. I can't wait to see what he's got in store for us in the future, because damn, this was good. And Thank you so much, Jose, for that. I really appreciate you commenting. I did look up Zach Cregger's next film. It's called Weapons, and it's no one really knows what it's about, but it's starring Pedro Pascal, which I'm excited for.
Oh,
Let's
wow, man. When you've got Skarsgård and Justin Long, and you've obviously got big name actors in that, but now it's like he's
Pascal's
really got his foot in the door.
Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
My final thoughts. I really enjoyed this movie. I like the way that it plays with your emotions and the way that it distracts you. I think it has a lot to say without being really preachy. I think it has a lot to say about human nature, a lot to say about just nature, the nature of men in general. And when you think of a barbarian, what does a barbarian do? What are the first two things you think of when you think of a barbarian?
Well, I can name one. Savagery, I think, is my like just utmost like savagery and disregard for anyone but yourself. Yeah, just kind of like looking out for number one.
The first two things I thought of when I was like, what is a barbarian? Is rape and pillage.
Oh, there you go.
That's the first two that I thought of. And it's like when you
Barbarians
look at this,
at the gate kind of thing, yeah.
Right. Yeah. If you look at this neighborhood, it has been barbarized, whatever you want to call it.
Barbenheimer.
I think, Barbenheimer. I think it's a really good movie. I think that I'm really excited to see what's going to come out of Zach Cregger, and I'm extremely happy that his career didn't just stop with something like Wrecked or Whitest Kid You Know. He took this like totally different turn and is now making these really great horror movies, and I hope to see him do more stuff with the Whitest Kid You Know troop, which obviously minus Trevor Moore, R.I.P. That was awful, but I'm a big fan, and I'm excited to see where it goes. I think the 93% on Rotten Tomatoes is absolutely great. I think that's a great call, and I'm excited to see more of his stuff. I'm really happy that I pulled the trigger on this and ultimately shot Mama in the head. It was a good movie.
I totally second your thoughts, man. I think this movie's outstanding. It was one of my favorites last year. I absolutely loved it. Great performances, great like atmosphere setting. Like he's so good at setting tone, at setting like, because like it's very important that the first 40 minutes is this intense sort of like tension raising thing, and then like the air is let out and you've got another tone, and it's like, oh, okay, what are we doing here? Like, this is different. And I thought that was great, man. I think he's got a real handle on this movie making thing. I'm excited to see where he goes from here. There's a lot of social commentary on this movie, and I hope we touched on it a little bit. I enjoyed discussing this. I always enjoy discussing a movie that has something to say, and says it in very allegorical terms like this.
Right.
Like there's a lot of meat on this bone, as you like to say. But yeah, this was a great conversation. I had a great time with this. Thanks for picking this, man. This was awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. I really enjoyed it as well, and we hope you guys did too. We always have fun when we really get into these kind of meat and potatoes and get into the subtext of what's going on, and I enjoy that a lot. But it's also just a damn good horror movie. On the surface, it's just this damn good horror movie, but then it's also got this this really interesting message behind it. And it doesn't really, you can point to 4 or 5 different things that it's trying to say, and it's probably true of all of them, and it could possibly be true of none of them. I think that's interesting. But we hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Again, you want to check out our Patreon. It's patreon.com/midnight-double-feature. It'll become a member at the Green Room. It's only $5 a month, and you can get your vote on. So we're actually about to go cover Dude, Where's My Car? As voted by the members. Need a palate cleanser after this. Jesus Christ. I need a fucking shower.
Holiday, man.
Yeah, but hopefully we will catch you guys over on the bonus feed. If not, we'll catch you on the next one. Bye.